You're on the air.
Mr. Palmer, please. Good morning. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods, a California nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. It is Tuesday, September 4th, 9:30 in the morning. I'm going to begin with asking Director Palmer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Continue on. Item 3, the media. I don't see them yet. She's usually here by now. Okay, item 4, motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
You got that, Cheryl? Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, no opposed? Thank you. Oh, we're voting automatic, computer-wise, right? No, we can't. Okay. Okay.
We are able to use the system if the board so desires.
Yes, we do.
He has no screen.
Mr. Moldow, your machine isn't working, the rest are working, so you would have to vote manually.
Sorry, Bert.
I could use the exercise.
Okay. All right, everybody else for their, should we vote on the agenda then? We've already done. Okay. Approval of the minutes, item 5. Motion? Second. Mr. Mattson, second. Any discussion? Yes, Annette?
Okay, on approval of the minutes, on pages 10 and 11 of 14, that basically would say good neighbor block captains. We need to omit the word building because that's reserved for the Garden Village. So that is one change I want to make sure that we have there. And then the other one is, see page 5 and 11 of 14 of 5A. I believe on the Energy Committee that there's only 2 members from each, so third needs to designate an alternate. Okay, that's it. All right, thank you so much.
Yes, Joan?
On page 5 of 14, Sheila Bialka's name is misspelled. It should be Bialka. It's a top group, non-voting advisors.
Okay, those are just typos and minor changes. With those changes, all in favor? Thank you. No opposed. Now, can you vote on your computer? There we go. Okay. Excellent. Okay, item 6, that would be me. Please bear with me this morning. I'm going to take a few minutes, this being my last meeting as president. I wanted to let the residents know and kind of talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that this board has done over the last year or so, the last couple of boards. One of the things, I asked staff to put together some of the things that, from their perspective, that we've accomplished, and they gave me a list that's longer than my arm. They did a great job, and over the weekend, I kept thinking, I didn't even realize that we accomplished quite as much as we have. One of the things that I think is really, really important is that we've learned how to work with Third United Mutual 50, which I think is a very significant change from the past. Some significant things we've done: extended the trust. We have a new strategic plan. We completed a 5-year capital plan. Today we will be approving a new management agreement. A huge thing we did this year was update our bylaw 2.1.4, a tremendous thing. Staff lets me know that the GRF assessments were at an all-time high in 2014 at $233 per man or per month. Well, I'm glad to report in 2018 our assessment is down to $203 per man or per month. Quite an accomplishment. In doing that, all our gatehouses will have been completely renovated with new RFID systems. The end of this year, we will have our security arms all installed for the entire community. Security now has laptops in every vehicle, and they have a report writing system through the computer they can do anywhere they are, which is a huge, huge thing. Some of you have noticed that we have new kiosks in the lobby. I've used those myself. It sure helps a lot. Thanks to the energy people, we have charging stations now for electric vehicles here at the community center. The garden centers. Has anybody seen the garden centers lately? They're tremendously improved. They look a lot better than they did a year ago. That was no small feat. We've done a lot of work with the pools. Village Greens Restaurant. We put some money there, and it's a lot nicer. New furniture, carpet, things that we should have done a long time ago. We've improved the Par 3 course. A lot of improvements there. Our HVAC systems, replaced them on a lot of roofs of our buildings, and are tremendous improvements on our air conditioner systems. Clubhouse 7, the bridge room, we've improved it, renovated it, and put in a new commercial-sized kitchen for Clubhouse 7. Tremendous improvement. And believe me, there's many more. However, I have to say that I believe the number one improvement is that this board became a team. They've realized that the team is greater than any one director and work together to serve the residents of the entire Laguna Woods Village. I commend each and every one of you and hope that future boards will learn from this board. Thank you.
Thank
Item
you.
7.
Thank you.
Update from VMS, Director Kinney.
Good morning. Hope you guys all had a great Labor Day. I'd like to thank Tom for giving most of my report. You know, as Tom mentioned that you have gone through a strategic plan, and as you know, VMS has had one since the very beginning. And it's something that we update each month, take a look at very carefully. And today I would like to highlight not so much things from that, but talk a little bit about some of the things that, that are directly impacted. For example, goal number 1 of ours is to provide exemplary customer service. And today, I have brought with us a couple of our coworkers who have done exactly that. And I would like to introduce them. Abraham Ballesteros, who many of you know, probably you, Tom, since you were
Yes.
in there. In August, that little office over there had 6,500 service engagements. It's a huge amount when you think about it. It's just like a city. And Abraham, believe it or not, accounted for 1,253. So simple math, you do like 20, 5 times 4, divide. You see how busy he was. And so I just wanted to bring him in here and acknowledge the great job that he's doing along with the other people in there. But, he has done something special. Thank you so much. Also today is with us is Vincente Martinez. And I think especially those that live in United are very much aware of the handyman service program that has been rolled out. And Vincente, along with Victor, who are the 2 people responsible, have been getting absolutely unbelievable great reviews from everyone that has utilized them. The only complaint I ever hear is from the members of the 3rd community that don't enjoy the handyman service yet. It's a pilot program, and it's been very successful. And the feedback we get for both Vincente and Victor has been unbelievable. Victor would be here, except that he's out probably changing a light bulb or something. But I wanted to thank them and just put a little bit of a face with some of the people that do such a great job for our community. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
On behalf of our board, I'd like to thank both of you for the outstanding service to the residents of this village. Thank you.
Thanks so much. The 3rd goal of our strategic plan is to provide a safe community, and I'm glad to say that in a report given by Tim Moy at our last meeting, the statistics for problems in the community remain relatively the same for the past year. There's been a reduction in traffic collisions and some of the other things. I'm not sure how that happened because somebody took out my car one day, but so I was part of that statistic. Compliance. When you think about taking care of the rules and regulations we have in the community, we actually get about an average of 177 cases a month, new cases of compliance. And it runs from anything from illegal occupancy to carport clutter, any of those types of things. So it shows you the scope that all the people in the office do. As far as social services, I'm really glad to announce that we've added a couple of new positions at no cost to GRF or the mutuals. We have a licensed clinical social worker, who is funded by Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center. And the program is working really, really well. So far, year to date, we have 527 new cases. So it's an area that's highly utilized. Goal number 2 is facilitate efficient operations. And one of the things that, for all of us that have been in business, and I know we all have, it's incredibly important to keep people trained and do things like that. And this last month, we had 67 managers and supervisors who completed a 1-day training. And, included in that things like teamwork, leadership, simple things like employment law, customer service. And so I think it's really laudable that the upper management of VMS, Brad, and everybody has seen this as a critical part of what we do. I could go on and on also. Um, Next month, we will have a service award luncheon where we honor people who have been here 5, 10, 20, 25, some 40, hard to believe, but true. And that'll be October the 3rd. And I want to thank you for your attention. Oh, I have one last thing. I don't know, and I thought I would bring it up because it's very noticeable to me. And I would imagine it's noticeable to people in the community. The quality of the documentation and things that are going out. For example, if you can see, it's a whole new thing. There's an employee newsletter now that comes out once a month. There's the Village Breeze. There's all kinds of other things. And it's directly attributable to Eileen and some of the people that are working with that. But thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to add, I've really enjoyed working with staff, especially security, Brian Gruner in recreation, Eileen. There are so many people and staff that have just done a tremendous job and helped me this year, and it's helped this board and helps this community. So thank you very much, Mr. Kinney. CEO's report.
Honorable President, members of the board, it's my privilege this morning to provide the CEO update. Senate Bill 1128, if you'll remember, this is the bill that was sponsored by Senator Roth on behalf of the village, is now on the governor's desk for consideration. You may be requested to sign letters to support that and encourage the governor to sign it. And this bill, if you'll remember, covers uncontested elections, the delivery of annual documents either in writing or via email, and changes the notice requirements from 30 to 28 days to help us get business done more efficiently in those times where we don't have 30 days between our monthly meetings. So that's very good news for the village. GRF elections are upon us. Anyone who's interested in running for the GRF board is encouraged to pick up a application and instructions from the general manager's office or the corporate secretary. These applications are due September 25th by 5 p.m. And this is just a great opportunity for interested parties to contribute to the community and help us navigate as we move forward. So we encourage all interested parties to come in and pick up an application and get them submitted before the deadline. I also would like to share some data this morning from some of our new IT systems, our technology systems that Chuck has been instrumental in implementing. As Director Kinney indicated, we have some great data from the new service kiosks in resident services. We had more than 6,500 customers served in resident services in August. And of these customers, 23% were there for vehicle passes, 19% were there to see manor alterations, 18% had maintenance concerns, and 16% of the customers were there to see leasing representatives. Similarly, we have our first full month of Ride Now, or Plan a Ride data from our new system. In August, there were 2,147 scheduled rides in Plan a Ride. Out of these 2,147 rides, there were 305 riders, and 65% of the riders used the service more than 10 times in August. With the continuing upgrade in technology, customers in Plan a Ride will receive 2 contacts before their scheduled ride. One will be an email when they schedule their service, and then prior to their actual service date, they will receive an email and a telephone call reminder of that upcoming ride. Last week, we were notified that Southern California Edison will be coming back to continue to work on their upgrades in the community, and these are primarily occurring in United. We expect to see Edison back sometime around September 17th. That's a tentative date, so as we know with Edison, that could shift a little bit, but we'll probably be seeing activity in the later half of the month. You may have also noticed some improvements in the community center. Manor Alterations is moving from resident services down the hall to one of the meeting rooms so that they can provide more dedicated, quiet service to our residents when they come in and need to go over a set of plans and so forth. So that's the plastic in the hallway that you see and some of the remodeling going on. But that's a great service enhancement for our residents who are working with Manor Alterations. As President Circle mentioned, our gatehouse renovations are nearing completion. Gatehouses 10, 11, and 12 are complete, and the construction crews are now working on Gatehouse 4. So that's a major improvement for our community, and then that sets the stage for the gate arm project that he mentioned in his update to you. I wanted to also thank everyone who came out for the Good Neighbor Building Captain Barbecue that was held on August 28th. And that was to thank all of our many volunteers for their service in our emergency preparedness efforts. So thank everyone for their efforts, and I hope a good time was had by all at the barbecue. And just one reminder from our recreation department that Monday Night Football kicks off on Monday, September 10th. So 1 week from last night. There are 2 games on that night. These these games take place in Clubhouse 5. They're broadcast on the large screen. Seating is first come, first serve. There's free chips and salsa, hot dogs available for purchase, and a no-host GRF bar. So please, if you're a football fan, please take advantage of those as the football season kicks off. And that's all I have for this morning.
Thank you very much. Open forum. Zoe?
Okay, our first speaker is Chris Collins.
Good morning, Chris Collins, 3306Q. I'm here representing the foundation of Laguna Woods Village. A partnership that really works. Alone we can do little, together we can do so much. This is attributed to Helen Keller. That message reflects the ongoing partnership between the foundation of Laguna Woods Village and the village social services. For over 20 years, this partnership has strived to meet the needs of village residents by providing temporary financial aid to village residents facing financial crises. We've helped in these ways by providing funds for electricity bills, caregiver services, doctor costs, dental care, taxi vouchers, and with grocery cards. Today, the partnership has expanded and it includes some new things. First of all, there's the purchase of medical alerts and ambulance contracts. There's distribution of earthquake kits and transportation to the local food pantry. To request help from the foundation, a resident need only go to social services, which is located right here in the rear of the community center on the first floor. Their trained staff can be reached at 949-597-4267, and they will explain how to qualify for such temporary assistance. But the village's social service staff does much more than just provide a link to the foundation. It's a valuable resource connecting residents with many, many, many important things. Caregiver services, meal delivery, mental health programs, dementia care, and adult protective services. The social services provides comprehensive biopsychological assessments that can be performed by trained staff, and the team of trained social workers can help residents during a time of crisis. They also have the Friendly Visitor Program, and this is a program that trains residents to develop the compassion and skills necessary to become welcome companions to the less active residents. For more information, you can reach the foundation by phone by calling 949-268-2246, or of course by email, which is thefoundation@comline.com. Also, please visit our website, which is thefoundationoflagunawoodsvillage.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Prior to the next speaker, I want to remind everybody that you have 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers may address the Board of Directors regarding items not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Tom, Mr. President, am I allowed
Judith.
to ask the foundation a question?
Sure.
You mentioned briefly, it sounded like you said help with grocery carts. Are those the new 15 inches that residents are having to purchase so they can use them on the bus?
No, they're grocery cards for the bar.
Oh, cards, okay. Because
Carts
We're going to ask you about the carts at another date. Thank you. Okay.
Bert, did you have a question for her? No. Oh, Annette?
The question I had was, I just thought about it, Chris, while you were speaking. Perhaps providing moisture intrusion devices for these folks' water heaters and all their toilets and all their sinks. Do you do that? Because these are the people that would be the least able to deal with a problem like that.
We haven't done that heretofore, but I suppose it's something that you considered, Beth?
Yeah.
Okay, just for consideration.
Yes, thank you.
You're
That
welcome.
would be something that we would maybe consider, but know that we do things on an emergency basis when folks come to social services and then they recommend them to us. So then that process would be that they would go to social services, ask for that help, and then we would, go through the process if it would be available.
Okay, thank you very much. Cheryl, next speaker, please.
Okay, our next speaker is Roberta Burke.
Good morning, Roberta Burke, 9:30.
Good morning, Roberta. We haven't seen you for a while.
Oh, my goodness, you haven't really missed me, have you? Yes, we have. Don't take that off my time, please.
No, go ahead.
I live down at the creek, as some of you may be aware of, and I live very close. I'm the last house before the gates that head towards Moulton. A number of years ago, when PCM was still here, the weeds get cut in a certain order, or they used to. And so we really didn't have major problems for the 20-some-odd years I lived here, except for 1 year, where I don't know if they didn't cut them properly that year on time, or we just had an abundance because of rain. And they decided it was too difficult, and they allowed them instead to just die and burn off. I don't know if any of you were here at that time, but perhaps some of you would know that it created health problems for numerous residents, some of whom I didn't know that lived on the other side. And then, of course, they went back to the regular schedule, or we didn't really have a problem. Anyway, this is a very unusual year. First, because they were not cut on time. I'm assuming that that's part of the problem. And the other is because there's just an abundance. If you were to go down there now, it looks like a forest. The weeds are about 10 feet tall. And I'm speaking basically of the creek bed now, which is your responsibility. And I've had trouble finding landscape, by the way. That's why I'm here. At any rate, I am hoping if those same people live here, certainly we're all older, and that kind of a condition causes much more health problems now than it even did back then. This situation now is worse than it was back then, and I am hoping that that's not what the situation is going to be, that they are going to go in there with a sickle or however they're going to do it, I don't know, and clean up those weeds and not let them just sit and sit and sit and burn off and have all that stuff going into the air. So that's my issue. That's why I'm here. I hope I'm going to get a positive response to it. It is a little bit more difficult for them to do it that way, but it isn't impossible. And it is a large area. The area has gotten larger for anyone who's been down there. The other issue that I would just like to bring forth for you to bring to a landscape meeting is that there are about 14 trees growing in that creek that were never, ever there before. They always were probably cut down before they ever looked like a tree. And now, because of the change in scheduling, they are full trees. That's going to create problems when we have rains, and certainly if we have a lot of rain, because everything that washes down is going to get caught up around the trunks. We're going to have shopping carts and suitcases and clothing and weeds and you name it is going to be down there. And I'm hoping that landscape makes some kind of accommodations for all that stuff to be cleaned up, that we spent a summer not looking at a creek but looking at weeds. We hope we're not going to spend a winter looking at garbage. So I would appreciate if you guys can take that to landscape and in anticipation have some kind of a patrol, if you want to call it that. Well, I could be the patrol, but I hope they listen to me. I'm not sure they will. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll answer you at the end.
Okay, our next speaker is Joe Fitzham.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Joe Fitzcam, 405D.
Today, I just have a few thoughts and a request of GRF. It's not a complaint. I learned a long time ago from one of our wise men of our generation, Steve Martin. He said, before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way you have a mile head start and you have their shoes. So anyway, good morning, everyone. I want to thank GRF and all the boards, all the committees, all the volunteers throughout the community for all their efforts and the time they give us. Any good deeds done by one of us enriches all of us. Thank you to Brad Hudson and VMS for their services that create, innovate, cultivate, and generate answers for today and for the future. We find safety, security, sports, games, arts, crafts, transportation, a variety of entertainment, and many services, and God's gift of good weather all here in Laguna Woods. Laguna Woods is not just a place. It's a concept of shared interest and support for each other's interests and needs. This is a home for the empathetic that can carry us through our future stages and needs of our lives. This is why most of the people choose to be residents of Laguna Woods. We should never compare the value or the activity with one another. We are here to support each other, and if you do not support all activities, then why would the community support yours? You should never compare the value I've played 13 sports here, and one of them cost 120 times more than the other per person. Which one do we punish? The one that's smaller and costs less, or the one we really need that's big and does more? There are no comparisons that really work. Are we going to compare golf with a bridge, or a swimming pool with horseshoes, or bus routes with a gym? We should not. Every activity should stand on its own merit, its cost, and the need for it. We do not move here for one service or activity because of variety. This is not Disneyland of the 70s with A, B, C, and D, and E tickets. We pay our dues, and that represents the activities we want to choose. Some activities pay more, but probably because what benefits they receive, you believe, may be much more than the other ones. Unfortunately, I think in a few clubs and a few people, I see an atmosphere of when GRF does something good for one person, they took it from the other one. And I think that needs to kind of go away. We need to support each other, and that's kind of caused some issues with some things there. We should all support each other. When you make comparisons, most of the comparisons I've seen in the past, actually, when you look at them, are negative to the person who made the comparison in the first place. So please look at each sport, each art, each craft as its own entity, and judge it that way, and don't let anybody influence that activity but that activity itself. There is something I think would help with this, that would help with that system. I did this type of thing a little bit in my past life. I would request of GRF, if ever a GRF member, or if Brad Hudson's available sometime, I think I have a solution to try to eliminate that type of atmosphere in the community that would also help GRF and make Brad Hudson's job a lot easier. So anyway, I appreciate your time, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next.
Our next speaker is Maxine McIntosh.
Good morning, Maxine.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Thank you. Maxine McIntosh, 68C. I want to praise officers from our security division. 2 weeks ago tonight, my husband had an unexpected emergency, and 2 officers found him sitting in his car, parked in the middle lane by the exit from Gate 1, asleep. And this was late at night. Maybe he'd been swimming over at Clubhouse for maybe 10:45, 11 o'clock. And so, well, it's a long, involved story, very interesting. But anyhow, he said, no, he didn't need any emergency help, didn't want to go to the hospital. They brought him home to me, which I greatly appreciated. They were wonderful with him. That was Supervisor David Cox and his assistant. And I'm so sorry I didn't write down the name of the assistant. And Don came in the house. Anyhow, after a while, I discovered he was nearly unconscious and he couldn't communicate. And I put my arms around him. He was all bent over the sink in the bathroom. And I put my arms around him to straighten him up and found that his body was burning up. So I called 911. And of course, the first responders were our security officers, David Cox again, and his assistant that evening, and all the other lights and people that come and all. And I was so grateful. They handled him and helped me in the most wonderful way, get the information the other officers needed, etc. And a couple days later, and they had parked Don's car for him right there in the guest parking by Gate 1, of course, because he wasn't to drive home. Okay, a couple days later, I'm looking for the keys to go down and bring the car home. No keys. And I called and talked with David Cox, and he thought he'd given them to me. And I thought, well, I knew I hadn't received them. And bless his heart, he went through his truck from bumper to bumper to see if he could find Don's keys. Well, as it turned out, as I found out after Don got home another 2 days later, he had hidden them when he came in the house. And I found them I keep a plastic shoe box for little trinkets for my granddaughters. And he had put them in there. I mean, would you look for your keys there? But security was wonderful. We are so fortunate to have them, and I just can't thank them enough. And you mentioned the licensed social worker that we now have. We are so lucky. Our village must be the envy of most age-restricted HOAs around the country. We have our own social services department, and now we have this licensed social worker. I believe her name is Paula. She came a couple days after Dawn came home to see if there was anything she could help us with, a list of services, her card, information. What wonderful, wonderful support we have here. I thank you all very much for supporting this program for us.
Thank you, Maxine.
Okay, our next speaker is Michael Landry, sorry.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. It can be Landry or Landry. 693B, Mike Landry. I'm afraid that Roberta stole most of my thunder. Dang it. We walk the creek every day. We love the creek. But the vegetation has gotten to be out of hand. And I've always said, look, we're not Disneyland. You can't have it perfect. You can't have just the perfect cattails in the perfect situation in the perfect spot. But it has gotten a bit out of hand. The last rainy season we had, the little bridge, not the new one that's caused such a ruckus, but the little one that you have to go down the hill and then back up to Cardiac Hill. There has been sand on that little piece of walkway since the last rainy season. I think the last rain we had was in December or maybe January at the very latest. It's never been cleaned. And, and to get back to VMS and who I like to call PMS before them, point well taken, right? The creek was kept in better shape. And again, I don't feel we should whip it into shape like Versailles necessarily, but it needs to be a little cleaner. And I understand vegetation is good because it does filter the schmutz that comes down the creek. Yes, this is a good thing, but it can be restrictive at some point. At one point, I was about to get a machete to cut down along the side of the sidewalk. I mean, it was encroaching on the sidewalk. So please have the landscaping people pay a little more attention to that whole area. I had offered to be on the landscaping committee for United, but I was asked what my qualifications were. So I gave that up because I don't want to have to go to school and get a doctorate in botany to be able to be on a landscaping committee to give my services. So that's basically my kvetch for the day. You guys have a great day, and thank you for the abuse you take from all of us, for all of us.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, that concludes our speakers.
Okay. In response, I think Bert is the chair of our new reinstituted landscaping committee.
Yeah.
And their specific job is what, Bert?
Specific job is the creek.
The creek is their first
Priority.
job.
Well, actually, it's our second. We've got to define our charter first.
Okay, well.
But we'll be doing that in the same day.
Yeah, go ahead.
We now have the members of the committee. I'll be looking for advisors. If you might want to consider taking on a job.
As long as I don't need a botany degree.
There you go. I don't have one. So that is the first thing we're doing. You know, we got to appreciate something, though, with regard to landscape currently. They are short-staffed. It is hard to hire people currently. If you notice, the unemployment rate in Orange County is under 1%. And we have to draw people from a distance because of the cost of living in this area. And that also is presenting a problem. We're looking into what could we possibly do? Maybe do something like create a bus service where we pick up employees and bring them here and then take them home. I don't know what the solution will be, but it is indeed a very serious problem. We are short people. In addition to that problem is the Fire Commission has levied on us the task of having to clear from the wall from all of Mutual 3, from the preserve. We have to provide a broader clearance. We got to clear away brush on both sides of the wall. I mean, and you don't understand the reason for that with the fires that we've been having. And we want to have sort of a huge enough fire break so we're not going to have a problem within the community. So that's another thing that they have to deal with. But as I said, the first thing we're going to be doing is looking at the creek and seeing what we can do, whether it be contract labor. The one thing that we've got to be careful of is the fact that we've got to deal with 5 commissions as to what we can do at the creek. So we've got to be careful what we do. So we are on top of this. Our first meeting, I've talked to Bruce today, and I've asked him to set up the first meeting this September, first available date that he has. We do have a scheduling problem. There are so many meetings which require staff presence, and the members of the committee have to also be sure that there's no conflict that they're going to have with other committees that they sit on. So we're working this out. But believe me, we are on top of this. Yes?
Will we be able to see when that committee meeting comes up on the
As soon as I get a date from
on the
Bruce.
calendar, though, online?
Yes, you will. Okay?
Any other, Ray?
Continue with what he had to say. You folks don't understand, but we're dealing with, as he says, commissions. For instance, believe it or not, California Fish and Game, Laguna Beach is a big, big factor. If that place is cleared away and you have the water running like crazy and causing floods down there, we are responsible. Laguna Canyon Fountain, that's right, sir. I was on a commission. I know what I'm talking about. We've been involved in several lawsuits. In any event, Laguna Canyon Foundation is also involved. So when we do this thing, we have to go through all of these particular situations in order to clarify what we can and cannot do.
Thank you, Ray. Anyone else want to respond? Beth?
I just wanted to say to Joe, thank you for the message of we are all here to support each other. That really is kind of a theme here that Tom has helped us to build a strong team on this board looking out for the people in the community. Thank you.
Yes.
On the same
Judith.
subject, in your agenda packets, if you turn to agenda number 11B on the blue sheet, page 3 of 6, in red, you'll see the landscape committee members. So for United alone, I won't mention them, but look at those names, and those are the people you'd contact.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to respond? I want to thank Maxine for her comments about security. I remember my first introduction to our security was during the transition period when we had another person in charge, and it was a mess. Security didn't even have a license with the state of California at that time. They've come a long, long way. And I thank all the members of the board that worked with them, staff. Hiring of Chief Moy was tremendous. He's done a wonderful job. I should have mentioned him this morning, our disaster preparedness and training and hiring people. We put a little bit more money into the pot for security, and it has really given us dividends in who we hired lately. The supervisor that you mentioned is probably one of those that because he wasn't there a year and a half ago when I was chairing security. So that's an example of employees we've been able to get that know what they're doing, care about our people, and it's really not going the extra mile, that's their job, but they do it in a good way. And so your comments meant a lot to me. I'm sure Annette, who has carried on at the Security Committee after myself, are thankful for your comment.
Absolutely, thank you.
Anybody else? Like I said, I can remember meetings when it didn't quite go the same way. And I think we were fighting, they were fighting, everybody was fighting. And we finally figured out what to do. And we worked together with the community, and look what happens. We improve it. It's just a beautiful thing to see. Okay. That's it. Responses. Consent calendar, item 11.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joan. And it's the first one, A.
Uh,
No?
No. I move that we accept the consent calendar.
That's right. Yeah. I'm a little frustrated today, so
Okay, Bert
my
seconded
parliamentary
it.
procedures are not what they should be. I apologize. You have a motion to accept the consent calendar. Joanne has made the motion. Can I get a second? Judith, any discussion? Yes.
I just did want to, I know we're not supposed to discuss, but there is a typo. They spelled Jim Matson's name wrong on page 3 of 6 at the bottom, under Landscape Committee.
Okay. With that minor change, please vote for the consent calendar. Voting on your screens, please, except for Bert. Vote on your screen, please. That's- Consent calendar, please.
Just give me, yes? Jim's screen is off.
There we go.
There you go. Just press yes.
His screen's not even on. Okay.
Okay, then just raise your hand.
Yes?
Yeah, it's up there.
Who's missing?
Jim Matson, is it yes or no? Yes. Okay.
Okay. It passes 11-0. Thank you. Unfinished business, item 12, none. How about new business? Here we go. Item A, entertain a motion to approve a resolution interpreting GRF bylaw 2.1.4. We have to read the motion. It's okay. It's 13A. She'll get there.
Sorry, guys.
There we go.
Resolution 9018XX. Whereas GRF is required to obtain approval of the corporate members prior to engaging in any business or activity specified in paragraph 2.1.4 of its bylaws, bylaw 2.1.5, not included in a previously approved budget. And whereas GRF and the housing mutuals desire to create a routine process for presenting information to the housing mutuals relating to those facilities that do require approval and to confirm what does not require approval, in accordance with the express terms and spirit of paragraph 2.1.4 of the GRF bylaws. And whereas the bylaw section 2.1.44 limits the discretion of the GRF corporation as to either the construction of a new facility or an addition of or expansion of or an existing facility. I'm sure it meant of an try again. Sorry. Or an addition or expansion of or 2, an existing facility of at least 1,000 new or additional square feet and a cost of $500,000 or more. And whereas the term facilities is defined in the GRF Trust Agreement, Section 7M4, Bylaw 2.1.44, and whereas the GRF Trust Agreement, Section 7M4, defines facilities to mean a single structure or addition to an existing structure of a minimum cost or minimum size as stated in the bylaws in total floor space and intended for office, residential, recreational, or commercial use, or any combination thereof. And whereas the term structure is not defined in either the GRF bylaws, articles of incorporation, or GRF trust agreement, rendering bylaw section 2.1.4 vague and ambiguous. And whereas the vague and ambiguous term structure introduces uncertainty as to whether certain GRF business or activity requires the approval of the corporate members under bylaws section 2.1.4 and 2.1.5, and whereas the uncertainty whether certain GRF business or activity requires approval of the corporate members introduces inefficiency, waste, delay, and strife to the process of undertaking certain GRF business and activities. And whereas GRF, in conjunction with the housing mutuals as defined in the GRF bylaws, desires to eliminate this potential for inefficiency, waste, delay, and strife by defining the term structure as it relates to GRF bylaws section 2.1.4 and 2.1.5. Now therefore be it resolved that a special meeting of the corporate members shall be held in or about July of each year so that GRF can present any business or activity projects that require approval by the corporate members. May it be resolved further that the corporate members shall be permitted to vote personally at each meeting or by written ballot prior to such meeting, in the same manner that votes are solicited and cast at each annual meeting of the corporate members, and that the GRF board may appoint a member of VMS staff to serve as inspector of election for all such special meetings of the corporate members. Now therefore be it further resolved that for the purposes of this resolution, the term total project cost shall be understood to refer to the aggregate expense associated with the construction of a building or recreational facility intended for use by GRF members, including pre-construction costs, such as the cost of preliminary designs and concepts and cost appraisals. It is understood that costs may be incurred in the development of such preliminary designs and cost estimates before they are presented to and approved by the corporate members in order to develop a meaningful understanding of the cost and scope of a project, and that these preliminary costs shall be included in the total project cost. The total project cost shall include the cost of engineering to generate a final plan, as is typically associated with the process of obtaining city permits, as well as the estimated project cost, including the estimated construction cost, design costs, consultant costs, and construction support by architects and engineers. The total project cost shall take into account the estimated costs of new equipment and refurbishments associated with such construction. In addition, the total project cost shall include a 10% contingency above the actual estimated cost for cost overruns. For example, a project that is expected to incur an aggregate expense of $475,000 shall be understood and presented as having an expected total project cost of $522,500. That is $475,000 plus $47,500. Now therefore be it further resolved that the following types of business and activities shall require the approval of the corporate members as described in GRF bylaws sections 2.1.4 and 2.1.5. 1. Construction of a new building intended for use by GRF members or VMS employees, agents, or invitees. The following lists examples of buildings that would be considered structures requiring corporate member approval if they involve a total project cost over $500,000. A new clubhouse, B, a new gym facility, or C, a new office building. Number 2, a construction of a new recreational facility intended for use by GRF members or GRF's employees, agents, or invitees, which may be comprised of court surface areas, restrooms, seating areas, covered shade structures, etc. The following are examples of recreational facilities that would be considered structures requiring corporate member approval if they involve a total project cost over $500,000. A new pickleball court. B, a new bocce ball court. C, a new tennis court. Or D, a new lawn bowling area. Number 3, construction of an addition to an existing building or recreational facility that involves a total project cost of $500,000 or more, or that expands the total square footage of the building or recreational facility by more than 1,000 square feet. Number 4, modification or repurposing of an existing building or recreational facility that involves a total project cost of $500,000 or more. For the purposes of this resolution, modification or repurposing refers to the modification or renovation of an existing facility from its original purpose or use to a significantly different purpose or use. For example, the following changes would be a modification or repurposing. A, the removal of the Club 19 restaurant and its replacement with meeting rooms. B, the removal of the community gym and its replacement with additional office space. Or C, the removal of office space, park, and its replacement with a golf facility. Or D, the renovation of Clubhouse 3 to serve a purpose other than its present purpose as a performing arts center. Or E, the closure of a clubhouse. Now, the following changes would not be considered a modification or replacement. A, the renovation of the board meeting room. B, the relocation of the gym from the second floor to the first floor. C, the renovation of Clubhouse 3 in a manner where it retains its use as a performing arts center. D, the renovation of a gatehouse to incorporate cameras, computer equipment, and programs associated with access control. E, the partial renovation of a clubhouse or other facility to bring it into compliance with ADA or with other city or state code requirements. For example, widening a door, expanding a bathroom, adding equipment for the visually impaired, etc. Or I think F should be replacement of existing equipment associated with the facility. For example, air conditioners, boilers, camera systems, or alarm systems. So if you change that, okay. Now therefore be it further resolved that the following types of business and activities shall not require the approval of the corporate members pursuant to GRF bylaws, sections 2.1.4 and 2.1.5. 1, construction involving less than $500,000 in total project cost for new buildings and recreational facilities. 2, repair, replacement, or maintenance of existing improvements, assets, and or vehicles. For example, purchase, repair, replacement, or maintenance of the following. A, streets and parking lots. B, street signs. C, exterior lighting. D, computer equipment and software. E, cameras and other surveillance equipment, whether located in the interior or exterior of buildings, in recreational facilities, or at access gates. F, vehicles used by GRF or its agents, including but not limited to VMS employees, such as buses, vans, cars, golf carts, bulldozers, construction vehicles, boom trucks, and so on. G, landscaping, for example, hydro seeding, installation of straw wattles, or the implementation of other anti-erosion measures. H, perimeter fencing and/or walls. I, air conditioning or heating units, water heaters, and other associated plumbing. J, sewers. K, irrigation pipes and controllers, including relocation. L, equipment at Restaurant 19. M, landscaping, that is non-building improvements of the golf course. N, sidewalks and other outdoor walking areas. O, modifications or additions to existing buildings and recreational facilities required to bring the building or facility into compliance with the Americans and Disabilities Act, the Fair Housing Act, or any similar laws. Number 3, acquisitions that do not involve any expense to GRF. For example, by will, gift, or otherwise gratuitously. For example, a bequest or donation from a member, B, a conveyance of property from the city for general maintenance or for a specified purpose, or C, a grant of easement from a neighboring property owner for maintenance to be performed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the term demolition, as used in subparagraph 5 of paragraph M of section 7 of the trust agreement, shall mean to completely remove a facility, as that term is defined in subparagraph 4, paragraph M of section 7 of the trust agreement, and not replace it. That the term rebuilding refers to reconstruction of an existing facility after its complete demolition. And neither the term demolition nor rebuilding shall refer to the renovation of an existing facility that does not involve a complete demolition. And now therefore be it resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move we accept this resolution.
We get a second. Diane, second. Any further discussion? Yes.
I had two little things on page 6 of 8, up at the top where you talked about item G, that it really should be item F. I think the very last line after alarm systems, I think there needs to be an end paragraph.
Wait a minute.
Right after EG you started, okay. And then.
What, Diane?
Pardon me?
Would you repeat that, please?
Up at the top of page 6 of 8, item, it's labeled as G, but we're changing it to F.
Right.
Okay, the last, so, for example, begins with, as a beginning paragraph, beginning quote, not quote, what's the word? Parentheses. And so then we just, at the end, there needs to be a closed parentheses.
Oh, yes,
I see.
after alarm systems, you see
Yeah.
it? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank
And
you.
then the other is item F at the bottom. I think we now spell buses with only one S, but.
Yes,
I-
BUS.
And then my only substantive comment is on page 7 of 8, 3A, a bequest or donation. I would ask that we strike from a member. I don't know why we're limiting it to a member.
You're
We're
correct.
setting up this village community fund that's trying to raise funds, and it will really hinder that if we only restrict this to a member.
Is there anybody opposed to that?
No one's opposed to that. Okay.
Good. Judith had something.
Oh, well, I guess I can wait for discussion. I'll wait for discussion.
Yeah.
This is discussion.
This is it.
This
Go ahead,
is
Judy.
discussion.
It's for the lawyer. On the 8th whereas, the first blue page, or the second from the bottom, the uncertainty whether GRF business or activity requires approval of the corporate board introduces inefficiency, waste, delay, and strife to the process of undertaking GRF business. Does that mean if we don't, let's say something qualifies to go to the corporate board for vote, because it meets all the other requirements. If we feel that their vote to stop a project would interfere with or cause an inefficiency, a waste, or delay, we don't have to take it to the corporate board? What is exactly this?
No, so that's intended to express one of the purposes of this resolution, which is to define more specifically those things that need to go to the corporate members for a vote, and to identify it early so that we don't have staff and we're not retaining engineering consultants and other consultants, for example, going deep into a project and incurring expense that ends up not having the support of the corporate members. Does that make sense? So that the strife and efficiencies we're trying to promote here is by getting it to the corporate members earlier if it qualifies for those things.
Yes.
Okay, because I think we wanted to keep the bylaws from being abused where before we would want a project and say, we want it for $499,000.99. You know, so there was.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do
preventing those
here,
abuses.
and I think it's important to understand the intention of this document early on is it's, you know, first, it's intended to provide an opportunity for all of the leadership involved. And I mean, we are talking about close to 50 people here. So having communication among those folks on each minor issue as it comes up is more likely to prevent issues from either escalating or compiling to a point where we need like a mediator or a judge to sort things out. This is intended to foster that communication. And then the second intention was this. It's intended to identify the projects that we're going to have to go to the corporate members for early on, so that if we need to do that, we'll go and get the corporate member vote so that we don't, you know, take two staff members and have them each spend, you know, 10 hours a week or whatever they're spending on a project that ultimately doesn't get approved. And we have a lot of these smaller issues, like where we're taking on maintenance of a short sidewalk length, or we're hydroseeding a slope area because we're having some erosion issues. We didn't want to have to push some of those things over to a corporate members meet every time, because it would slow down our ability. And sometimes those maintenance items they're actually there to prevent damage to neighboring properties. So we wanted to know where we could move quickly, or things like ADA issues in that. We wanted to be able to jump on it and get it done. And we've got consensus from the other folks that they want us to jump on it and get it done.
So even though those projects you just mentioned might be over $500,000, because for efficiency reasons, we could fix them without going to corporate board. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So yeah,
pretty much.
there are those things, but understand too, and I'd be the first to say, this isn't a perfect end-all document because it can't anticipate everything that will come up. I do think that we've tortured through it pretty fairly and have developed a consensus. I mean, you see so many examples in there, and that's the model that we're trying to put in there. Those examples are built on actual projects and things that we've done, at least over the past few years that I've been here.
Okay, second question was the third, now therefore be it resolved further, the number 4, under, 5 of 8, I want to talk to C, which is on page 6 of 8. The renovation of Clubhouse 3 in a manner where it retains its use as a performing arts center. So we could spend $4 million a year on that without going to the corporate board, as long as we're just bringing the building into ADA compliance and city and state codes. And we don't have to go to the corporate board?
So if you're replacing an existing, you're not adding new things to it, then that falls out of 2.1.4. I think the discussions that we've had several times is for larger major projects than that, our processes do incorporate opportunities for feedback. I don't think a project that large is going to pop up as a surprise on anybody's radar, because it'll been vetted on committees that most of those same 50 people are well aware of and in fact involved within.
Okay. I bring that up only so the people at home can understand, because we've had a lot of question about, do we have the right to spend that much money on the Performing Arts Center? And I wanted you to explain that for the rest of the audience. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Bert?
Where I came from in Connecticut, people used to, quote, renovate their homes by leaving up a single wall, and the rest of the facility was torn down. And I'm going back to the last paragraph about demolition and rebuilding. And I could need some clarification here, because obviously, if we could do that, we could leave up a single wall of a structure, and in essence, that would not be we would not consider that as a complete removal of the facility, which is a very simple way of then getting around a set of rules. You want to respond to that as to
I mean, so
what's
this,
the meaning of this then?
and this would be the response. And like when I say this isn't a perfect document, but that it is, I think, the best that we can come up with based on what we know now. I could sit down and think of a dozen little nuancy things like that, that some might feel did require approval, and then some might also feel did not require approval between the two of them. I think those ambiguities are beyond the reach of all of us to completely eliminate in any one document, which is why I think it's important to start with the purpose. And the purpose is that if a situation comes up like that, and it gets significant enough that people need to sit and negotiate and discuss, number one, we've done our job right by having people sit and discuss it without having to have a mediator sit there to do it. And the second thing is the intention with this resolution is that it will in the future be changed by the organizations following those discussions to incorporate and fold in these examples of things where it's warranted. I think that would be a very substantial modification in the community. And from my perspective, if I were around here, that's something I would invite discussion about early rather than later.
Yeah, because I would think that, better than a single wall standing, you could stipulate that 90% of the facility, if 90% or a certain percentage of the facility is removed.
Yeah,
considered.
I think there are a lot of ways to talk about that there. One of the spirits, but again, we're trying to capture the sentiment of what, 27 plus 11 people, into one document here. I think the spirit of the document is this, that GRF has certain anticipated maintenance that it's going to perform. The stuff that you have, I think we had a gentleman speak earlier, and he was talking about all these various clubs and activities that he had. Maintaining what we have is GRF's purpose. Eliminating or creating new stuff is, I think, what the spirit of 2.1.4 is about. That's about going and consulting the corporate members on those changes. And then some of the examples that I had to feed in here are things like when we have to do modifications to the sewer, which, like, for example, was associated with the changes to the gates that we did recently. The corporate members don't necessarily want to torture through those things. And so that's why we're trying to define by example, with room to add more examples in down the road, how we perform those.
I just got one question. I'm thinking of Clubhouse 1. Okay, we talk about, Clubhouse 1 includes everything, right? The pool, the buildings. Okay, if we leave the pool and take the rest of that building away, then we are talking about a renovation, not a rebuilding.
So we didn't contemplate that as a problem when we talked about this here. If you were to ask me that problem cold, I think I would think about the building as a facility separate from the pool if you were engaging me in it. So my answer would be we would focus on the parts that we're changing, and I would say there's nothing existing, because the pool in my mind would be separate from the building. But we've never had that conversation.
Okay.
And speaking on behalf of the motion, this is significant that all the boards have agreed to these. Now, down the road, as our council has pointed out, there may be some areas of improvement, but this is not just 11 people doing something. This is all the boards actually agreeing to something, which is rather significant in my view. And if there's a few minor things that need in the future, I'm certain that the groups will be together and make those changes, improvements, et cetera. So without further discussion.
Do I have to make an amendment to take out from a member, or is that nothing?
No, that's just no. So without further discussion,
We have a couple requests to speak, President
Oh,
Circle.
good, okay. Who?
Okay, Mary Stone.
Mary?
Mary Stone, 356C. And I can't believe you're going into this kind of detail to try to define simple language. There are legal terms and that are defined that are very simple. And I think the intent that you're trying to do here is to understand when you have to communicate with the owners of the buildings, the properties, the facilities, because the owners are the mutuals. And you, if my, let's just relate it to like landlord-tenant. It's not quite the same, but it's sort of similar. Is basically I have property and I have a tenant and I'm long distance, so I can't deal with my property. So I have a person who takes care of it when to make sure everything is taken care of. But it's still my property, and they don't get to do major repairs on that property without my permission. That's the way your corporate members are. They own the property. You are like the agent, property manager. Well, not quite a property manager. Yeah, kind of. But, you're taking care of it. For you to make major decisions, spending their money or changing their property, to me is totally wrong. Totally. You don't understand what your job is. Your job is not to tell them what to do. Their job is to tell you what to do. And this is wrong. Oh, by the way.
Thank you.
What are you going to do when you decide to put up a solar field? That's not included.
Yes, it is.
Solar field?
It's a shaded, covered, it's a structure.
You're going to have the whole field. You're going to take the 23 acres and turn it into a solar field.
Thank you for your input, Mary.
There's things like that. This is, leave it alone. Leave it what it is. Turn this thing down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Maxine McIntosh.
Maxine McIntosh, 68C. I know the intention here is very good. Mary Stone is absolutely right. This should have come from the corporate members. And why don't you trust the corporate members? There are 27 of them, and there are 11 of you. And the corporate members should have the say on what goes into any document. And I think it's too detailed. And I do take exception with page 13A, page 5 of 8, down in number 4D. The renovation of Clubhouse 3 to serve a purpose other than its present purpose as a performing arts center. Its present purpose is a clubhouse. There are still an average of 20 clubs meeting there every week. I got the Globe today, even with the holiday and so forth. I got the latest issue of the Globe, and I counted up 20 clubs meeting. Now, I discounted the 4 that are church choirs and so forth, because I know they need a piano. I thought of them as performers. But you still have the other 16, and that's one of the lowest weeks. It is not a performing arts center. Early this year, in the board meeting, we were told, the whole community was told, you want to change the name to attract better shows, not with a hidden purpose of destroying it as a clubhouse. I really take exception to that. And then on page, not the last page, page 6, turn the page 6, C, the renovation of Clubhouse 3 in a manner where it retains its use as a performing arts center. It has a performing arts part or division, but it's a clubhouse. It's still a clubhouse. If you said as a performing arts center and clubhouse, that would cover it. That's okay. I think we need to improve the performing parts of it, but it's not just a performing arts center. That's the minority of groups using it. The majority are clubs. It's still a clubhouse. Please trust the corporate members. You put this under changes that would not be considered a modification or replacement. Does that mean it would not require corporate member approval? The most expensive project on the horizon? Is this making it that it will not require corporate member approval? The corporate members provide the money for all this. If that's what it's insinuating, that this one prize project is outside the law, that is really wrong. I hope you correct that very quickly. And by the way, several people asked me about my husband. I should have given closure. He's doing great. Little tiny wound on his foot allowed a bacteria to go through his whole bloodstream. Made him terribly ill, but the hospital cleared it up. Thank you for asking.
Okay, our next speaker is Joe Fitzham.
This was a little bit on the topic I was kind
Takes
of
approval.
addressing. Some things have happened in the past, that doesn't matter. Who's here today, what we do, doesn't matter. But looking on to the future, what you're talking about with this, as a resident, my concern would be a couple things. One, GRF needs the right to be able to maintain its facilities, period. That should be unobstructed. There probably should be some degree of improvement allowed. I think total repurposing or, well, like someone said, leaving up one wall, that's probably a bad thing. I think it's very important. When I ran across where I had an objection to something 3 times, there's proposals from GRF, and I would not have interfered in any of 3 of them, but we're actually tear out a facility that was probably still usable. And that's where I was concerned. So I wanted to make sure that however this goes down, there's not a situation where, my family is professional baseball players. So all of a sudden I get 9 people on the board, and we're going to take hole number 3 of the golf course, we're going to make it a baseball park. I mean, I don't want to see that type of thing happen to any other facility where one, because there's a lot of support for something, gets overran by the other. So you certainly have the right, and I trust you completely in taking and maintain the facilities we have. But if we're going to spend massive amounts of money on the facility, if we're going to take a facility from being what we used to be, say, at today's value, $10 million, and take it to $30 million, probably someone should intervene in that behalf. But I think it'd be slow to tear things out that might still have some useful value for what they are, be it for the purpose they now have or for some future purpose. That would be my concern. This is a business situation. That's what I was alluding to earlier. So I'll let you address that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that concludes our speakers on this item.
Okay, a couple of things. For the purposes of residents' knowledge, this document has been worked on by all of the corporate members. Their legal staff of United has been instrumental in crafting this document. Representing Third has been represented in this document. This is not something we did alone. It's been done by all of them and agreed upon by all the boards.
And if it helps to,
Many meetings.
Yeah, so you guys wouldn't be aware of this, but we started drafting this resolution probably 6 months ago or so. And so we started with an initial draft, and we sent that out to council for all of the mutuals. My understanding is that council has gone to their respective mutuals at least once or several times. It was never the intention to dictate to them what or how 2.1.4 should be interpreted, but rather to ask them, how should we be interpreting this? I think we've included every red line that came from other folks, which is how sometimes we'll lose a letter in a paragraph because I think we redlined it 3 or 4 times. They were very receptive to doing it. I think everybody on the other side understands this as well, is that it's a living, breathing document, that there are going to be things like major renovations or changes that are going to require corporate member approval. I know that, and I hope that we don't tire them out, but I think you're going to see corporate member meetings far more often than you've seen in the past, because I know we're going to be going to them, and they sometimes might feel it's a fairly minor issue, but we have things that pop up that technically needs to go to them. And second, it's just a good habit to involve and hear from them early on. So I hope that alleviates a lot of the concerns. And again, because it was council to council, you guys wouldn't necessarily know how much conversation has gone into this document.
One time, Maxine.
I just,
One time.
he
Come
didn't
on.
say there was an open corporate members meeting.
I was going to
there?
get to that.
Thank you, Judith.
So there will be. This is the first open, oh, I'm stealing your thunder.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that 6 months ago, we started these in closed meetings because it was considered a legal issue between the different corporations. So it started out in closed. Then, when all three mutuals plus GRF were on board with it, it was brought to an open, and I missed it, but I do have the date. It was brought to an open corporate board meeting, and I'm sorry you missed that. So it doesn't say, I was looking in here, it doesn't say anything except for 30-day review. But like he says, anything could be changed again in the past, but we've worked diligently on this every single month, and then all the corporate boards did have a say at the corporate board.
They were instrumental in the document, in the agreement. This is an example of how boards can work together to begin a process. Is this perfect? No. Probably not, in some people's view, but it's a really good start by a lot of people's efforts, not just this board. Joan?
Regarding the Performing Arts Center, it's my understanding that that's the name of the building, okay? And it includes meeting rooms, which are still used as meeting rooms. And the Performing Arts Center is being used as a clubhouse in that way. We have a dining room and other meeting, in fact, the whole auditorium can be used as a meeting room. So the word performing arts may be confusing, but it doesn't mean that every group has to be a performing group that meets there. I hope that helps.
Again, this is a document that.
So we wouldn't add it because, okay, we're not opposed to it if
You
somebody
might
else
down the
does.
road, as a group of all the boards, if all the boards want it changed.
Also, I wanted to comment in terms of, if you would make a comment, please, what Mary was saying that, about who owns what and who pays for what. And I would also mention that the trust facilities fee pays for more than what we get from the mutuals for.
You don't get that unless the mutual sell, so that's still mutual.
Not the mutual board is what I'm saying, but would you, that whole landlord kind of issue?
Yeah, so it might be more detailed, but perhaps to clarify for folks here, Golden Ring Foundation does own substantial portions of the property that it has as the facilities, and it pays for that through the transfer fees and pays for that through fees that would come in through the mutuals. It is a trust. These are trustees. That part is correct. So that there's clarity here, because it talked about the buildings that the owners own. GRF doesn't maintain the residence buildings or structures, and this resolution and that bylaw provision doesn't speak to any of that. The mutuals maintain and own their own property, and that's a side conversation, so that might have confused some folks.
Okay, without further discussion, we'll vote on the matter. Use your screen, please. Approving the motion.
Not a question of vote.
Jim, what is your vote?
Jim's a yes. So both Jims are yes.
Okay. Motion passes 10-1, 1 abstention, and 10 yes. And-
One no.
Oh, excuse me, 1 no. 10 yes, Mr. Mattson.
You have to remember that the mutuals put directors on this board. If it gets to the point where it looks like the mutuals are not controlling things, you can start pulling them off and putting on someone that thinks along your line. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. 13B, entertain a motion to approve supplemental appropriation for Gate 10 Civil Work Project.
Resolution 90-18-XX. Supplemental appropriation for the Gate 10 gate renovation and civil work project. Whereas gates 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and 14 were approved as part of the 2018 capital plan for gatehouse renovations to address code upgrades, improve traffic flow, gate access, security cameras, and aesthetics. And whereas the gate access system technology was also budgeted for these gates and includes underground power and camera cabling to communicate with gatehouses and security staff, and allows staff to manage and deter illegal occupancy by tracking guests, non-resident owners, and annual pass holders, and the number of times they are gaining access to the community. And whereas the GRF M&C Committee and GRF Finance Committee recommend that Gate 10 be added to this project for gatehouse renovation and gate access system technology, and whereas the funding required to add Gate 10 to the scope of the work for the civil work project requires $110,000 for gatehouse renovations and $80,000 for equipment. Now therefore, be it resolved on September 4th, 2018, that the GRF Board of Directors authorizes Gate 10 to be added to the current scope of work for the Gatehouse renovation project. And resolved further that the board authorizes a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $110,000 from the Facilities Fund for Gate 10 renovation, and $80,000 from the Equipment Fund for Gate Access System Technology, for a total of $190,000. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the Golden Rain Foundation to carry out this resolution effective immediately. I move we accept this resolution.
Second.
Second, Bert. Any discussion? Yes, Diane.
My only comment is that I think you should do something to address Gate 11, one way or another, but that's the only gate that's left out. But in terms of this, I don't have any objection. I speak in favor of this.
Okay. Without any further, go ahead, Jim.
I know that 10 and 11 were not in the first time, and I think we were talking about converting that to one gate.
We're not going to do that.
Have we decided? Have we decided to just put 10 in, and then we're going to get another gate with a single gate and all this $190,000?
We'll deal with
Yes.
11.
That's what Diane just asked, and I think she wants the lawyer to respond to that, why we cannot combine 11 and 10.
The lawyer's not
No.
going to respond to it.
We can. We've chosen to do 10 now and leave 11
Alone.
for the
Exactly.
future.
But what he was asking, in the past, the question came up, why can't we put 10 and 11 together? And there was a lot of reasons. Some of them were legal, and why we've chosen not to go that route.
So I'm sorry, I need more clarification on the question because I missed the discussion. I was out of the room.
Okay, on the first whereas, why is Gate 10 and 11 left out of the first whereas? Jim's question was, in the past, and this came up at the last closed meeting, and someone had a really good answer, Brad mostly, and he's not here. There's a lot of legal reasons why we can't combine Gate 10 and 11. Number one, the people in Gate 11 don't want it, okay, and have just one gate there at Santa Clara instead of two gates.
Traffic
And the others had something to do with the city and easements and who owns what part of the street. And are you up on all that?
No.
Okay, then you can't answer that.
Annette is, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. What happened was we looked at, originally we set aside $250,000 to study the gates 10 and 11 being combined. And of course, then we had a room here at security with lots of petitions signed and for folks in gate 11 that wanted to keep it. and keep their own gate. That was one consideration. But the majority of the consideration was given to all of the additional costs and actually coming up with a workable plan to, with that being the City of Laguna Woods Road, to really how to confer that. And it came up, and everybody looked at it, and basically we decided that Gate 10 would stay as is, and Gate 11 would stay as is, even though there's an additional cost to the members. That was the easiest way and configuration to keep the village safe and provide for all of the, there's a lot of activity going on in both of those gates, when people do remodels, when we do streets, when SCE needs access and everything else. And we felt that this was the best way to protect everybody in the village. So we kept it as is. Thank you.
And the committee's recommendation is to leave them separate. And this deals just with 10. Yes, Judith?
And can you, for the public at home on TV also, tell us why on some of these resolutions we have to maintain the 30-day review and on some we don't? What's the difference, so they understand?
Sure. So if we're adopting an operating rule that impacts the ability of the member to use the GRF facilities, then the civil code mandates that we go through a 30-day publication process, which basically looks like we post what the rule is at our official place outside. I think we put it online as well as a courtesy to folks. And then at least 30 days later, we host a meeting where we adopt that rule. And then within 15 days of that, we post what was adopted, because sometimes we'll change a date or time or something about it, typically based on member comments, which are invited along the time. If we're doing a standard like the resolution 2.1.4, for example, that talks about the way that we're just governing our stuff internally, but it's not a direct operating rule that impacts how a member uses the facility, then that does not go through the 30-day process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Bruce?
Yeah. We got to understand that the people of Gate 11, okay, let us know that they were not interested in combining the gates. And we had to get approval of the people that live along the Santa Maria if we wanted to do that. And given the fact that they're not willing to give their approval, basically put that to rest.
Okay.
It was just a quick, so I was not saying that we should combine them or anything. All I was saying is that you need to be aware that we have not included any funding to make, if you want to add gates to Gate 11, or if you don't, it's just not funded. That was my only comment.
This has to do with the not being funded. All of these gates are going to be put in 2 gates at a time. And the next set of gates, like suppose we say, okay, it's going to take 1 month or 6 weeks to do 2 gates. We will not move forward with the next set of 2 gates until all the kinks and all the issues are out of the 2 gates that we are working on. And right now, while everybody thinks this is going to be done by the end of the year, the way it's trajected and the way I've kind of mapped it out, this is going to go into 2019. So Gate 11 will probably be the 2020 budget. I don't think, just FYI.
Right. Yes.
John Franco, 3473. I'm on the GRF M&C committee, and I was the one that made the motion that we include Gate 10. And that was because after the discussion, as was said, 10 and 11 were going to be held in abeyance. And my interest was the security of 7, 8, 9, 10. And by including Gate 10, we now keep the interlopers out of that
Right.
area.
Okay. No further discussion. Vote for the, on your screen for, yes, Bert. You're voting, that's right, because your machine doesn't work. Everybody? For Gate 10 only at this time.
Oh, okay.
Director Gross?
Hit it 5 times.
Okay,
Just raise your hand.
Are you yes?
He's probably using his finger then, and not the nail.
One more. Okay. Resolution passes. Thank you. Item 13C, discuss and consider renovations to the trust facilities fee policy and promissory note. This is September initial notification, and we will be postponing this to November to confirm the 30-day notification requirement. Joan?
Resolution 9018 XX, Trust Facilities Fee Policy. Whereas as trustee of the Golden Rain Foundation Trust, the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation is required to maintain and improve the recreational and other amenities available to all residents of Laguna Woods Village. And whereas the Board of Directors finds that reinstatement of the capital contribution to the trust originally required to be made for each manor sold will ensure the continuation of the amenities that make Laguna Woods Village unique. Now therefore be it resolved, November 6, 2018, that as trustee of the Golden Rain Foundation Trust, a declaration of trust recorded March 6, 1964, the board will impose a fee to be known as the Trust Facilities Fee, in accordance with all terms and conditions contained in this policy statement and in California Civil Code 4580, as amended by Senate Bill 1128, Stats 2010, Chapter 322, Paragraph 2, effective January 1st, 2011. On all transactions involving the purchase of a separate interest in any of the trustor's common interest developments, United Laguna Woods Mutual, Third Laguna Hills Mutual, and Mutual 50, each of which is hereinafter referred to as a trustor, within the city of Laguna Woods, as an obligation of the purchaser or purchasers, effective January 1st, 2019, for purposes of determining the effective date, purchase contracts entered prior to January 1st, 2019, in which escrow opens before January 1st, 2019, and closes on or before March 31st, 2019, are deemed transactions occurring prior to the effective date. And resolved further that the trust facilities fee will be a fixed amount as provided herein and as determined from time to time by the trustee of the Golden Rain Foundation. The entirety of each such fee, when and as paid by the purchaser, shall be deposited into the trust facilities fee fund and shall be applicable to all such transactions, excluding the following transfers of a separate interest. Excuse me. One, where ownership of a separate interest is joined between a current beneficiary and a trustor and a non-beneficiary spouse, domestic partner, or other relative of such beneficiary. Two, where ownership of a separate interest is transferred to a non-beneficiary of a trustor by gift or through inheritance from a beneficiary of a trustor. Three, where ownership of a separate interest is transferred by a beneficiary of a trustor to the current qualifying resident, as defined in the bylaws of each trustor, of the separate interest, where the transferor has never been a qualifying resident and has previously paid a trust facilities fee. Or four, where ownership of a separate interest is being transferred to a trust whose settlor or principal beneficiary is the transferor, or to another trust for estate planning purposes. Resolve further that, effective with escrows opened or purchase contracts signed on or after January 1st, 2018, the trust facilities fee shall be set at $5,000 for units with a sales price of $75,000 or higher, and $2,500 for units that sell below $75,000, until modified by the trustee. And resolved further that, in accordance with Civil Code 4580, each new purchase of a separate interest in any of the trustor's common interest developments within the city of Laguna Woods to which this trust facilities fee applies, that is, all new purchases other than a transfer qualifying for any of the exclusions set forth in subparagraphs 1 through 4 above, shall, in compliance with California Civil Code 4580, have the option to either, 1, pay the fee in its entirety at the time of transfer, or 2, pay the fee amount pursuant to an installment payment plan for a period of 7 years. If the purchaser elects to pay the fee in installment payments under the second of the above statutorily permitted options, then the trustee may also collect additional amounts not to exceed the actual costs for billing and financing on the amount owed, as set forth below and in compliance with the Davis-Sterling Act, as the same may be amended from time to time. And if the purchaser sells their separate interest prior to the end of the installment payment plan period, he or she shall pay the remaining balance of the fee owed to the trustee prior to transfer. A fee of $10 will be imposed for any late payments. The Golden Rain Foundation Board shall assess a one-time, non-refundable origination fee of $300 for the preparation of the promissory note and related records. The Golden Rain Foundation Board shall also assess interest not to exceed the maximum rate allowed by law. The payor of the note may prepay the note in whole prior to maturity date without penalty and may receive, at the request of the payer, evidence of debt fulfillment. Payments received in excess of monthly note installments shall be applied to future note installments and not a direct reduction of principal. The monthly payment of the trust facilities fee, the origination fee, and interest shall be due on the first day of each month. And resolved further that Resolution 90-1735, adopted November 7th, 2017, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move we accept this resolution for discussion purposes now and postpone the final vote for 30 days from now pursuant to Civil Code 4360.
A second.
Beth seconds. Any other further discussion? Bert?
I would like to amend or offer an amendment. I don't believe that $10 for a late payment is anywhere near adequate, nor does it come close to the cost that we incur. And I think what we have to do is ask accounting to give us a figure that is more realistic, that, for instance, we charge for a late payment for assessments, where we're trying to basically recover the costs. $10 is nothing compared to the costs that we will incur. So I'm offering an amendment.
Second?
I second that amendment. And I think that it should be standardized according to the, if it's like $25 or $35 for the late fee. I agree with you.
So does your,
Let's hear an exact.
yeah, what is your amendment? Is it-
Exactly.
It's not.
That we request accounting to come up with an actual cost figure and apply that figure to the late payment.
Betty, have you done that? Have you done that for third? Is it going to be different than it is for GRF? Do we know that number?
The chargeable service late fee is probably the most relevant to compare to, and there is a difference between Third and United. They don't have the same late fee. Right now, GRF has $10 as their late fee for unpaid chargeable services, as does United. So it's the assessment, which is the much more involved process, that has the higher late fee.
Do you feel that $10 is an adequate recovery for what you have to go through?
It could definitely be higher, but if you're looking for consistency, we'd want to look at the chargeable service rate as well. So you can't just, there isn't a standard rate to make it the same, is what I'm saying.
Can we bring that up a different day, I guess is what I'm saying? Can we look at the rate that we're charging for non-return or for return checks and address that and see if we, like, at our next GRF meeting. But at our next finance meeting, but in the meantime, go ahead and pass this, would be
The
my.
best figure I can give you is in third, they increased theirs from $10 to $35, if you wanted to benchmark that.
Well, we have an amendment request and with a second. We have to vote on that first. I speak not in favor of the amendment because I think we ought to leave it until we look at that subject for all the way across the board. But that's.
Well, I just meant that there isn't a standard
Right.
rate for you to use. But I think if you're going to change the rate, now is the time, because this is going on 30-day. You don't want it to come off 30-day and then make another change that would require a new 30-day notice.
Okay, well then.
So I'd say
your
anything
amendment-
between $10 and $35.
Your amendment needs to be more specific. What do you want it to go to if you don't want 10?
Well, I'm asking accounting to provide a realistic figure.
She is a.
Not, oh, 35? Okay, then I'll propose that we raise it to $35.
Okay, the amendment to this is, we have to vote on first.
Well, right, but it has to be seconded. Is that what you're seconding?
She seconded.
I know. Before there was an amount.
Okay, you're right. Okay, we have an amendment change to 35 and a second. All in favor? It passes. Now,
Question.
That's the amendment.
yes,
Okay,
Judy.
Down at the bottom of the page, it says, staff recommends that this motion be made, which we just did. And then it said, staff also recommends a board postpone the resolution for the next available board meeting. So do I need to make a new motion to postpone this for the 30 days, or was that automatic?
No.
It's in the motion, Judy.
So
It's
that's
in
part
there.
of the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Now for the original motion.
now we go back to the original motion. It's now 35. The amendment is 35. Joan, do you make a new amendment? No, I meant a new motion. We're done.
We vote on the amended motion.
Approve the-
As amended.
As amended.
Okay, we vote on the motion as amended. All in favor, please vote. Everybody, we don't know.
Hit your buttons.
Hit your button.
Yeah, I pressed mine.
I pressed mine also, yes.
There you go, Ray.
Keep your hand up, Jim. Oh, you're there. They got you. No, she got you.
Okay, it's 35 now. Okay, the motion carries. All right, 13D, entertain a motion to approve the 2019 GRF business plan.
Can we back up just a moment? I was looking at the promissory note, and I noticed that within the promissory note, there's no reference to any penalty whatsoever. Whereas when people do not pay their assessments, we can cut off their TV or deny them access to other facilities. But in our promissory note, there's no such statement to that effect.
Well, then that's something we need to address in the future, not now.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. 13D. It's a motion to approve the 2019 GRF business plan.
Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods 2019 Business Plan Resolution. Resolution 9018XX. Resolved September 4th, 2018, that the business plan of this corporation is, for the year 2019, is hereby adopted and approved. And resolved further that pursuant to said business plan, the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby estimates that the sum of $37,386,217 will be required by the corporation to meet its annual expenses of operation, from which will be deducted $9,291,861 in various sources of non-assessment revenue. Additionally, $2,903,808 is planned for reserve contributions. The Board of Directors hereby estimates that the net sum of $30,998,164 will be required to be paid by the corporation members in accordance with the terms of that certain trust agreement dated March 2nd, 1964, as amended, and the bylaws of the corporation, and resolved further that this corporation shall charge each member the sum of $202.83 per month per membership of said corporation for its share of the aforesaid net expenses and reserve contributions for the year 2019. And resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move we accept this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Hearing none.
Let's vote.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in agreement? Getting there.
Gotcha.
Jim, yours didn't get on here?
And, good. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, 13E. Entertain a motion to approve the 2019 GRF Reserve Funding Plan.
Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods 2019 Reserves Funding Plan Resolution. Resolution 9018XX. Whereas Civil Code 5570 requires specific reserve funding disclosure statements for associations. And whereas planned assessments or other contributions to replacement reserves must be projected to ensure balances will be sufficient at the end of each year to meet the association's obligations for repair and or replacement of major components during the next 30 years. Now therefore be it resolved September 4th, 2018, that the board has developed and hereby adopts the Replacement Reserves 30-year funding plan attached with the objective of maintaining replacement reserve balances at or above a threshold of $7 million, while meeting its obligations to repair and or replace major components. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move we accept this resolution.
Second. Diane, any discussion? Without further discussion, vote please.
All those in favor?
Did you get it?
11-0, it passes. Thank you. Item 13F,
I have to use your finger now.
entertain a motion to approve the 2019 GRF Capital Plan.
Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods 2019 Capital Plan Resolution. Resolution 9018XX. Resolved September 4th, 2018, that the Capital Reserve Expenditures Plan of this corporation for the year 2019 is hereby adopted and approved. And resolved further that pursuant to said plan, the sum of $8,897,450 is hereby authorized to be expended in 2019 for the purposes provided therein, of which $3,371,050 is designated from the Equipment Fund and $5,526,400 from the Facilities Fund. And resolved further that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby authorizes the transfer of $6 million from money set aside in the Trust Facilities Fee Fund to offset planned expenditures from reserves, as projected in the 30-year funding plan. And resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move we accept this resolution.
Bert, second. Any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Just a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right, without further discussion, please vote.
Director Mattson, you want to just give me your verbal vote?
Yes. It's not responding, yes.
Motion carries 11-0. G, entertain a motion to approve the commercial vehicle storage fee for RV lot. Again, September initial notification postponed till November to conform to 30-day notification requirement. So, G.
Okay, this is on a separate paper.
Yes, it's separately here.
Okay. Resolution 90-18XX, commercial vehicles in RV lots. Whereas the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods has administration control of recreational vehicles, lots A and B, and these spaces have been rented to residents. Whereas the Security and Community Access Committee has recognized the need to find parking for commercial vehicles. Now therefore be it resolved on September 4th, 2018, that the Board of Directors of this corporation hereby allows that RV lot parking can be utilized by resident commercial vehicles as space permits for $640 per space per year. And resolve further that residents will be given a 30-day notice if required to vacate their commercial vehicle space in order to accommodate a new resident's RV. And resolve further that affected residents will be given a pro rata refund. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move that we accept this resolution for discussion purposes and postpone the vote for 30 days in compliance with Civil Code.
Annette seconds it. And we don't vote until the 30 days. Discussion.
I'm on there. Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to call to everyone's attention. I hope this gets some publicity. Joan and Eileen's not here, because I can't tell you how often we have a resident come up for a hearing and we had to fine them, FINE, because they were self-employed and advertised on their vehicle, and it wasn't just one of those things you stick on there and off. And they had to pay outrageous sums of money to store their vehicle someplace else and find another way back home. So we did hear your cries and concerns, because we have a lot of self-employed people living here. So this is addressing all those. Unfortunately, we can't go back and satisfy the people that came to our hearings. However, now they can start, because of this, parking after next month, possibly parking their commercial vehicles. And I think there's a restriction on the size still. Isn't that true? So, but it doesn't detail that in here. So I'm hoping next month we'll have a little more detail on what the restrictions are. But being able to park these vehicles, I know that's still a little bit of inconvenience. They'll be able to take them over to the RV lot, and we've been tossing that around for a while. So I'm all in favor of this commercial vehicle RV lot. 640 is good.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So I had a couple of questions or comments, but generally I speak in favor of this. And Joan, you can tell me if this is significant. So in the second paragraph, whereas the Security and Community Access Committee has recognized that some residents need to find spaces, I don't know that we have decided that we have a need. Because if we have a need, then as GRF, then we need to make sure that we always have a place for commercial vehicles, and we don't. We recognize a need for RV, but in any case, I don't know, that might be insignificant. And then on the first resolve further, why is it just accommodating a new resident's RV? If an existing resident purchases an RV, right, that would, okay. So with those, and the only other comment is that we charge $320 per space for RVs, but we decided this should be higher.
The reason for that, if I may?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, for your comments on that some residents, have a need to find parking for commercial vehicles and, omitting the new. But when we went ahead and looked at this, people that have RVs don't have to access them daily, nor do they access going in and out of the big electrical gates multiple times a day. And so there's a greater need on those electric gates, which are very expensive when they break. And then we're going to have to really monitor this, because in the past, people have given their card or whatever. Anyway, there's been a problem, like their employee could access this space. So we're going to have security monitor this on a much more consistent basis to make sure that the members are removing these commercial vehicles themselves and then giving it to their employees. It's not for us to say, is this person that is, going into this car, if he's not a member. I mean, we're not here to do that, but we're going to have to monitor for security is going to have to be much more mindful and really watch the RV lots for this to see what and how we can come up with different things and see if this is working.
Yes. Yes, Ray.
Just to continue on that, the reason for the resident situation is many residents work for companies still that are advertising. They bring their trucks home and so forth that are advertised from their businesses, and that's what we made sure to check that out. That's why the word resident is in there. They are a resident. So.
Yes, Judith.
I know this doesn't say it's a pilot program, but I assure you, if we find abuse in this system, we will change it and address it. Thank you.
Yes, Bert.
We also have to realize, and I don't know how we're going to deal with this, in order to get to their vehicle, okay, they're not going to walk. They're going to have a golf cart or a regular car, which says that they will be parking those vehicles in their slot. And I think we have to recognize that whatever's parked in that slot is legal. And
Security will be able to figure that out.
okay, but that's important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Takes a lot more monitoring.
All right, without further discussion, please vote on the motion. Oh.
President Sergo, we have a request to
Oh, okay.
speak.
Please.
Juanita?
Juanita?
Good morning. I understand the intent of this, but I also think, particularly within the next 30 days, when it's up for discussion, we need a better definition of a commercial vehicle. The way it is now, it's anything that's got writing on it. And as other people have mentioned, we have a lot of people who are still working in this community and have company cars. They are for their exclusive use. They are not used commercially within the community, and they don't have things like employees that would access them or those kinds of things. And I think that when we define commercial vehicles, we need to take into account that maybe we need to let residents who have a company car, who live here, park their company car as anybody else does. And that's just a clarification and definition of what is a commercial vehicle. Right now, it's all inclusive.
Okay.
Can I tell you what our policy says? Our policy, I guess it's item or paragraph B2 defines commercial vehicles. The following resident solely owned and DMV registered commercial vehicles displaying any of the following attributes are eligible to be placed in a surplus place in RV Lot B. Commercial vehicles will not be issued GRF decals, it says, but it says, so it lists of a type used or maintained for the transportation of persons for hire, compensation, or profit. Examples, taxi cabs, limousine, any vehicle originally designed to carry 12 or more passengers. Designed, used, or maintained primarily for the transportation of property. Includes any vehicle mounted with a utility, body, or bed, or aftermarket equipment carrier. use specially equipped or advertised for commercial purposes. Examples are motor truck, pickup truck with a ladder, rack or utility body, or carrying visible tools or merchandise, van or sport utility vehicle with business advertising displayed, or carrying visible tools, chests, racks, and merchandise. That's out of our policy.
The GRF does not recognize not giving a decal or giving a decal to ones that don't fit into that.
I think,
Anything that has writing on it, they won't give you a decal.
I think, again, during the next 30 days, they'll look at the policy and see if it needs any tweaking or not. Yes, Judy?
Yeah, that's why the first thing I said was, I hope this comes back with a little more detail in it, defining things. And so even though I'm in favor of this, I want the same detail that Juanita brought up and a couple others.
Well, it's quite detailed. They need to review it and see if it needs or not.
One of the things when we were bringing this up was because this is the GRF lot, and to be fair to all mutuals, I wanted it to be on a pro rata basis for Third and for United. And the chief requested that I not do that right now and let him see how many he gets in terms of these requests to solve. But I also felt that this way, if the first 10 people come through and they're all from United and nobody from Third gets a shot at it, I look at the fairness of this. The other thing I look at is if there happens to be a bigger issue on this item and the Third mutual needs to look at that and maybe make some sort of resolution, there again, that's up to their board for parking of different things that don't comport with this. But I do understand what you're saying, and we will take additional time to take a look. Thank you.
That's all. We got 30 days. Okay? We'll vote on it in 30 days. Okay. Item 13H, entertain a motion to recommend fire avert pilot program for Third, Laguna Mutual, and United Laguna Woods Mutual's consideration. Is there no?
It's just an administrative procedure, and all the board is being asked is to give their recommendation to pass it along to the two mutuals for consideration.
Consensus.
Okay, we just spoke about this at the security meeting. And what happened, SCAC, they put it on for new business for next month because they were looking at the ability to hardwire. I know our advisor on security, Frank Tybar, was going to be looking at this with Chuck Holland and a few other people to see how this could be hardwired and expense behind the stove and different other kind of configurations and things like that. So just wanted to give you an update of what they were looking at.
Okay. Yes, Ray.
I went one step further. The device you're talking about will turn off the machine, but it's only for that one area. And my concern is that if we have fire directed in other directions as a result of that initial fire, I want something that will expand outward to make sure that the whole area is covered, so to speak, if a water device or whatever the case may be. That's what I'd ask for them to go ahead and go follow up on.
Yes, Bert.
One objection that I have has to do with the fact that it relies upon the existing smoke detector. And we have plenty of smoke detectors in this community where the batteries are dead. Nobody's ever tested them. And it's something that's got to be done, and we're not doing it.
Well, but again, this is a recommendation to them to look into this, to do just that, and to come up with ways to do this, and certainly taking that into consideration. I know security carries around batteries with them because they get calls to replace batteries.
Right. A lot of people can't test them because they can't reach the test.
But again, the mutuals will look into that, and they will do what they need. We're just recommending that they do that.
And I make a motion that I move that we recommend Fire Avert pilot program for Third, Laguna Hills Mutual, and United Laguna Hills Mutual consideration.
Ray seconds it. Yes, Judith?
Reading from the minutes for DPTF, the meeting, because I'm secretary, We are going, it's a thought anyway, we've elected someone to go and talk to both social services and the foundation to see if they could keep these in stock and give them to people who can't afford to install these. And so that's something else we're looking at.
Again, we are asking the mutual boards to look into that, all of this.
Well, this is separate from what you just said.
That's the recommendation. That's all. Yes, Raina?
At Mutual 50, we are replacing the sprinkler heads, and we check every year the battery for the smoke
Right.
detector.
Good.
So as a mutual, we do this.
Good. And again, there is an effort through security to replace ones when we discover it. This is just a recommendation to the other boards to look into this matter, take all of this into consideration. So without further, please vote.
Yes. Cheryl? I lost one. I'm going to abstain because I don't lose mine.
One more.
One abstention.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your vote?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, motion carries. Mutuals will deal with it, I'm sure. Item 14, committee reports. Here we go. A,
Sorry, back up.
Finance Committee. Director Phelps, please.
Got it. Cheryl, I'll start off with the slides. So I'm going to start with a review of the July 31st, 2018 preliminary financial statements. And while we're waiting for slide one, here we go. Through the end of July, total revenue for GRF was $25,201,000 compared to expenses of $24,509,000, resulting in net revenue of $692,000.
We need the slide.
Where it's coming. Okay, in the meantime, I'll then start off instead, while you're looking at getting that up. We did have an August finance meeting, and we had two presentations. The first was by BlackRock Merrill Lynch, who went over our investment portfolio. The second was by Beecher Carlson, our insurance broker, who went over our insurance policies that are up for renewal. So, okay, now back to the slide. So as I said, $25 million in revenue, $24 in expense, and $692,000 in net revenue over expense. So slide 2. This chart shows activity in operations separate from reserve and contingency funds. Activity in operations, we had an operating deficit of $428,000 through the end of July after backing out depreciation, which isn't funded through operations. Slide 3. When comparing actual results to budget, GRF was worse than budget by $746,000. The most significant unfavorable variances between actual results and the amount budgeted were the trust facilities fee, which year-to-date were $306,000 under budget due to two things. The number of resales this year is down 19% from sales in the same period last year. And also, the fee was increased from $2,500 to $5,000 for escrows opened after January 1st, 2018. So the receipts in the first quarter of the year reflected the lower $2,500. Another unfavorable variance was legal fees and arbitration services, which were higher than budget by $257,000 for labor issues. Cable programming, copyright, and franchise fees were higher than budget by $212,000 due to increased programming fees on certain contract renewals and more broadband revenue-generating franchise fees. Clubhouse rentals and event fees were unfavorable by $180,000. Due to lower revenue-generating events held at the Performing Arts Center, and staff is working on a plan to attract higher revenue-generating shows to the Performing Arts Center. And outside services were unfavorable by $113,000 due to more outside repairs for generators and vehicles and more marketing programs than anticipated. We did experience a favorable offset in some categories. Broadband services revenue was $190,000 higher than budget due to more internet subscribers and set-top box rentals. Other favorable variances were interest income, which was $164,000 higher than budget, and professional fee expense, which was lower than budget by $114,000 due to lower audit fees, but also just due to the timing of tax preparation fees. In slide 4, on this pie chart, we show by category non-assessment revenues received to date of $7,497,790. Our largest revenue generating operation was broadband services, followed by the trust facilities fees, golf operations, and so forth. We need to remember that non-assessment revenue helps keep down our assessments. Slide 5. Expenses to date of $24,509,470 are shown by category on this pie chart. The largest categories are compensation, cable TV, insurance, professional and legal, and so on. Next is slide 6. This is the reserve and contingency fund adjusted balances. Starting with the first column on the left, the funds show a combined balance of $27,914,000 as of the end of July. Included in this total are contributions received this year through assessments, trust facilities fees, and interest earnings. The second column shows work in progress of $4,468,000, which reflects the amounts paid for projects that are not yet complete. The third column shows the net of these first two columns. So the net adjusted fund balances, or cash balances, are $23,446,000, although most of the funds are held in investments, not in actual cash. Slide 7. Lastly, in an effort to give you more meaningful information on GRF reserve expenditures, we've added slide 7, which is a summary of our detailed reserve expenditures report. Column 1 shows we had appropriations of $20,218,000 approved as of July 31st. Included in this figure are all 2018 capital plan items and supplemental appropriations, as well as amounts approved in prior years that were carried over for completion. This figure will increase as GRF approves supplemental appropriations during the year. The second column reflects expenditures and is titled Incurred to Date, or what has been paid since the funding was approved. We can see that $8,493,000 has been booked as of July 31st. This figure was increased during the year as expenditures are made. And the final column shows $11,054,000, the remaining encumbrances. This is the amount approved by the board for open projects that has not yet been spent. That's it for the slides. I hope the additional detail on our reserve expenditures is helpful, and I remind you that much more detail is provided in the GRF Finance Committee meeting agenda package, which are available online and at GRF Finance meetings, and that our next scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, October 24th at 1:30 in the boardroom. That's it for the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Diane. B, Community Activities Committee, Director Parrott.
We did not meet this month. We will be meeting September 13th next week at 1:30. That's a Thursday. But I just wanted to remind you that you can go to our website and find out all the activities that are happening in the community. Lots of things going on. You can pick up a brochure such as this that our wonderful communications department has put out for us, and these are activities and events, and this is for the month of September, so you can pick one up at any clubhouse or here in the administration building. Things, we have classes that the Recreation Department puts together. This one is a mindfulness meditation class, which will be starting on September 10th. And then if you are in a club or interested in a club, you may want to take a look. There's an entire listing of all the clubs in Laguna Woods Village and the description of them and contact information. So lots of information coming from the Recreation Department. And please join us for our meeting on September 13th.
Thank you. C, Maintenance Construction Committee, Director Mattson.
We had a great meeting. And Ernesto made a presentation on some of the project log items, which is, we have 23 of those. So I'll just give you a little bit of information on some of them. On the Clubhouse 4 workshop, that work is now complete over there. A real good HVAC system was put in, plus new windows. While we were there, a lady, by the way, our meeting took about 2.5 hours, so there was a lot of talking, so I'm trying to give you some of the actions. There was a lady in the audience brought up to our consideration that there is no sink at the new pickleball and paddle tennis court, and so there was a motion to include that, which passed. At the Performing Arts Center, we talked about that for a while, and there was a motion for preparing of construction documents to implement the recommended PAC maintenance and equipment upgrades. That was discussed and passed. On the pools, each pool has a area where they have the chemical storage for that pool, and there have been leaks at some of these containers, and so there's a motion to replace and upgrade with the new containers for this. That passed. On the Willows Foundation, which we passed here a little while ago, the recommendation from MNC for the board today on the getting a sidewalk lease agreement with the Willows Foundation, who controls that sidewalk. And so that passed, and it's been passed on to this board today, which we passed. On West Creek benches in Gate 11, we talked about that for a while. Staff is looking into, it's going to take a while because they have to, as a result of comments that were brought up, they have to find out if it's what it takes to put a bench in there, all the things that could happen. Instead of people just walking through, if we put a bench or two or three, now people can stop and start eating or doing things, and there's, what do we do about all that? And so staff is still getting the requirements for that. And then we will look at that and see if we actually want to end up putting a bench out there. On the real big one that we talked about is on the expanding the north wall of the kitchen at the 19th restaurant. Right now, when that place gets full over there, it takes 30 minutes to an hour for someone to get a hamburger or something like that. So when that building was designed, or the kitchen was designed back in 2011 when that was built, that was designed for a small kitchen, including breakfast and lunch only. And so at the very end, I remember we threw in a 6-burner stove, griddle, and an oven, and that's not getting the job done. So we talked quite a bit about that. I proposed a 3-foot by roughly 30-foot long expansion, moving that wall out so there'd be more room, about 90 square feet in the kitchen area. I've talked with the manager there, and he's all in favor of that. So what we ended up doing is, by consensus, our CEO will be talking to the current restaurant manager about GRF funding that activity, which would have to tear out the whole north wall there, which is around 30 feet long, and so the restaurant will be closed down for a while. And so, but we want to talk this over with the manager, so we agreed that, and with Ernesto's recommendation, that our CEO would talk with the manager to see maybe our contract with them could be modified to our favor, which is a very sensitive thing over there. And so we passed that, and so I don't know if Brad has talked to them or not, but we'll find out. And that sort of concludes all the highlights. So the next meeting is October the 10th, which is the second Wednesday in next month.
Thank you. Again, I want to throw my support behind that project at 19. It's really badly needed. I also want to call everyone's attention to the Globe and the article about Clubhouse 4 air conditioning system, and a petition of support and a thank you signed by, I don't know, 20 or so people who are in Clubhouse 4. So I'd like to commend Jim and Richard for their work on that particular project. The people love it, and so it's a lot better, a lot easier for the people, especially dealing in the woodwork department.
Right.
And I know Richard's been monitoring it quite closely, and I just wanted to commend both of you for making that a good project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I read that article in the Globe, and I have to not agree with it. I mean, everybody's happy the air conditioning is working, but there are still problems.
I know, and you're going to monitor it.
So I'm
Yes,
checking into it. I'm
yes.
waiting for drawings to verify what they're doing, but
Well, I can tell you the one individual who didn't want it and fought the hardest was also signed the letter saying thank you. So, but I know you'll stay on top of it, and that's a good thing. Okay.
That can always be modified.
Yes, okay, here we go.
Okay.
The PAC was mentioned a little bit. Go ahead, Beth.
We didn't have a meeting, but hopefully within the next month, by the end of October, we will be getting some more data from the architects. So we'll be returning with information.
Okay, report of the Village Energy Task Force, Director Muldoon.
Well, the Energy Task Force met and worked on the charter, submitted it, and it has been approved today. The chairman was basically voted on, and Bill Walsh from Third Mutual is the chairman of that committee currently. Interestingly enough, through our good relations with suppliers, we learned of a $29 million grant program from the state for EV charging, high voltage DC charging stations, and we have indeed, have requested staff, and they have proceeded to apply. So it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. And apparently we do comply to the requirements issued by the state. We have submitted to the consultant that we have hired and a request for a bid for working on the microgrid proposal for this building and looking into an alternative for self-generation, either through a solar field or through a fuel cell. In addition, we made contact with the University of California, Irvine, where the fuel cell research center exists, the National Fuel Research Center, and have arranged for a meeting where they would present to us what they've done with regard to microgrids and fuel cells, and that will be discussed at the next meeting, which is going to be held September the 12th at 9:30.
Good work, excellent work. Media and Communications, Director Milliman.
Well, our meeting was quite a surprise. We had two wonderful reports. Chuck started out with what he'd given on TV6, and it was just stupendous. So let me hit the highlights. He, again, touched services. What was our capacity has increased from 80 gigabytes, that's the cable modem termination systems. This will sound like Greek to you somewhat, but just understand that we've increased our capacity from 80 gigs to 80 gigs per per month. Or it's simply that we can now attach lots of, everybody's got something to go with the internet. Well, it used to be you had just your TV or just your computer. Well, now you have your cell phone, you've got your whatever, anything can go. And the more you have, the slower the system gets. Well, it's now been increased, so we can take more gadgets, if you will, on the internet. So the speed was getting slower and slower, and now it's consistent. The devices, you add them, and the speed will remain the same and getting faster, as a matter of fact. The cable modems that some people have to be replaced, and the West Coast Internet is replacing 4,000 of those modems. And by the end of 2019, they'll all be replaced. So they have a record, broadband has a record of what kind of a modem you have, and they will be replaced to keep up with the system. The resident, unfortunately, is always responsible for, your, thank you, for the router. So the routers sometimes get old too, so don't forget to replace those, but those are your responsibility, and you can always get them at, the usual stores, Staples and what have you. So Fry's, just be sure you have a current router so that everything is working smoothly. Chuck went on and on and on, and everybody was just sitting there in amazement as we viewed what's been going on under the substructure, as you probably know. Remember all those boxes with all the wires that are now that have been replaced, and all this infrastructure they have gone through for months, and that's done. So things are really looking up as far as broadband is concerned. And remember that, the rental of the boxes and whatnot helped to pay for the cost of having our own TV station. And the rentals or not the rentals, but the subscriptions that we give to people who want to advertise through our system, that also helps to pay for the system itself. So anyway, all in all, we have about something, reserves over around 200,000 that we've been able to save. Let's see, the outside services fees over the next 4 to 5 years will be changing somewhat, but I think you'll be pleased with the speed with which, we are blessed. I'm not making a very good report because it's highly technical, but you can see Chuck's interview on Village Television through YouTube, and just look for the June presentation that he makes under playlists. Then our marketing and communications director, Eileen Palin, came up with several things that were pretty amazing. One thing that is going on is the Trello software, which we don't have much to do with, but because you'll notice that communications is becoming greater and greater, and they're putting out more and more, and they're dealing with all the departments, recreation, the history center, maintenance department, disaster preparedness, transportation, security and landscaping, and they're putting out brochures and articles, and they're just kind of going crazy. So this software keeps track of everything they're doing, and it's pretty amazing. It tells you where things are and how it's going, and it's great because they can keep up with it, and they do. It's amazing. One thing they've been working on is successes of the year videos, and if you saw Brad's presentation, what was it, last week, that's going to be used, parts of it will be used for the mutuals and for us to show what our accomplishments have been. And it's going to be coming out on video, so I just wanted you to know that. And one of the last things that Eileen talked about was the information on the Code Red campaign. And people are urged to renew your email and be sure that everybody or that the village knows your email address. And That's going to be part of the code red information that comes out. Your email address and phone number is vital for emergency situations. We've had several, as you know, and if you're not on the list, you don't get notified. So please, it doesn't matter whether you're an owner or a lessee, it's important that your information be here so we can let you know what's going on. And that just about concludes my report. Our next meeting will be Monday, September 17th at 1:30 here in the boardroom. So come and be entertained.
Thank you. Mobility and Vehicles, Director Troutman.
Yeah, we had a special meeting. It was a televised meeting, October 31st at 9:30 here in the boardroom. And there was only one thing on that agenda, and that was to evaluate alternative transportation options, because as a lot of you know, the bus riders have not been real happy about the changes with the Plan-A-Ride. There were 65 residents in attendance, in addition to a representative from the Globe, 5 staff members, and 12 directors. This meeting, I thought, was a great meeting. We got a lot of information from it, and there were emotions everywhere, from tear-jerking comments to harmonious moments. The next replay will be Wednesday the 5th at 2 p.m., then Sunday the September 9th at 11:30, and again on Wednesday the 19th at 2 p.m. So I encourage residents that are interested in what's going on with the buses, plus all the directors here that are going to have to make a decision in a couple of months, to watch that meeting. We started out with, like I said, there was only one thing on the agenda. 12 people spoke in the open forum. Most people spoke to the agenda item. And what we were presented with were, we asked staff at prior meeting to bring us some options, alternative options. And this is what we were presented with. We were presented with 6 options. The first one, Easy Rider 2018 with Plan-A-Ride support. And the Easy Rider is a current system in place that includes fixed routes operating on weekends and Plan-A-Ride on weekdays and holidays. This option would add 1 additional Plan-A-Ride vehicle and driver that would be reserved 7 days a week for medical appointments only. This concept would address the concerns voiced by residents that it's difficult to schedule trips, especially on the weekends, while still providing a dedicated support for medical appointments. This option would free up a vehicle for same-day trip requests, adding capacity for approximately 4 to 5 trips an hour. This option would require an additional funding of $215,000 a year, and that's for operating expenses that would come from man-hours and gas and maintenance. This alternative would increase the monthly transportation assessment. The second alternative was Easy Rider fixed routes. An alternative to the current system would return to the traditional 7-day fixed route system before and after hours Plan-A-Ride service for our residents and mobility impaired service during the day for medical appointments. This was a system that was in place prior to 2018, which was supported by an operating budget of approximately $500,000 per year. Plan-A-Ride, more than what we're paying now. Plan-A-Ride services would be reduced to a maximum of 4 vehicles a day. The third option was an alternative would return weekend fixed routes bus service, but in a reduced service hour capacity, and service would be available from 9 to 3 only, and a Plan-A-Ride operation, the usual weekend hours. This estimated cost would increase by $250,000 a year. Then the fourth one was Plan-A-Ride service 7 days a week. Alternative would provide Plan-A-Ride service 7 days a week with no fixed route services, and residents would call or access electronically through media. Anyway, those 2 more of those that are sort of just as confusing, because we were thrown with 6 alternatives with very little time to really digest them. No one in the audience was able to digest them. So the committee tried taking one at a time and asked staff to go through slowly. I picked number 3 to start with, and we decided by the end of the day to send to Finance a recommendation on number 3 for returned service hours for the fixed routes on weekends. That seemed to be the biggest complaints. They didn't have any ride on the weekends. Alternative would return the weekend fixed route bus service. And service would be available from 9 to 5 with Planaride operating the usual weekend hours. The estimated cost increase for this alternative with 9 to 3 would be $250,000, but we wanted it 9 to 5. So staff would have to come back and determine the cost prior to the next finance meeting. Unfortunately, now we find the next finance meeting isn't until October 24th. So after the meeting, since staff didn't have data for us, we've come to the conclusion that we want to bring this recommendation back to the next meeting, October 3rd, and have time to rehash it a little bit longer. And I did get a note from Bruce this morning, pending the GRF finance and board approval, we will reinstate the 8-route system on weekends while keeping Planaride at its current level. This will require 8 additional drivers and 8 buses scheduled on weekends. 1 small bus is required for Planaride, and the other will be used on the lesser traveled routes. This is no starting with a couple of routes. It's all or nothing. One system won't work in pieces, or our system will not work in pieces. We'll begin putting together the exact costs for the next step. A more practical decision would have been to reduce Planaride on weekends with a return of the fixed routes, so we would have enough buses, vehicles, and drivers to go around. So without this information at the time, the committee made the best choice with the information we had, which wasn't a whole lot. So since then, we got this morning as well statistics finally from Chuck Holland. And he says, and these are the statistics, I wanted to give you all some stats on the Ride Now Plan program for the month of August. The new system is working admirably, and we are capturing all kinds of important metrics that I wanted to share. I watched the GRF Mobility Committee meeting today, and I was disheartened at the direction that they were heading. From talking to some of our team members, many of people who spoke today never took a Planaride service, so they have nothing to compare to the fixed routes. I particularly wanted to address the comments about missed rides and no-shows. It's all in the numbers, and there was another side to the story here. Out of 2,147 scheduled rides in August, there were 305 unique riders. Of those riders, only 65 of them used the service more than 10 times. So 60% of the riders were for only 65 people. Of those 2,147 rides, 214 rides were canceled or no-shows by 102 of the riders. So fully 30% of the riders either canceled or no-showed for their ride at least once. And in red, some of them canceled or no-showed their ride up to 10 times. So I think that it's important to share with the GRF board. I'm not saying our drivers 100%. What I'm saying is that the residents are responsible for the missed connections more often than not, and I know this to be true. So the system is sophisticated enough to handle and track these cancellations. It reshuffles drivers, itineraries, and reroutes buses, vans, based on the least cost routing algorithm. It's pretty tight and super efficient, and it's only the first 30 days in service. So with that information, the staff and the committee has agreed to just bring this back to the next committee meeting on October 3rd and rehash these options again. They also provided us with 4 additional options that, well, including Bert Maldau, the one route system. And he explained that. That's 8 buses following the same route, same frequency. Every 30 minutes, they wouldn't be numbered, every 30 minutes, a bus would come to the same place throughout the village, period. And some people think that's good, but there's challenges to every one of these. Then there's the 11 route system. And they don't feel that's an efficient route at all. I won't go into details. And then there's something called the hub and spoke system. That's a system that was presented by our director, Moldau, here. So they gave it the name hub and smoke. It was hub and spoke. Okay. Then the heritage plan is another one that the riders have been complaining about. This plan was presented by the bus drivers who ride the routes. And it has a lot of merit, but it also has a lot of glitches. So they're going to go over those 4 routes that keep coming back to the committee, in addition to getting close to the 6 that they presented us with. So it's not an easy process, but I really like the numbers, and I really want to thank Chuck for getting those to me before the meeting today, because that puts a whole new light on our decision. So you may or may not get something on the 24th, Diane. So anyway, I did want to read, we know not everybody has a smartphone. So if you do, yes, it does benefit you, because they will either text you and they'll ask you on the phone, do you want us to call you back to confirm? Do you want us to text you? Or do you want us to email you? And this is an example of the text, if you ask them to text you. Thank you for booking a trip with Laguna Woods Village Ride Now program. You have booked a ride for August 31st, 2018 at 11:30 a.m. Your reference number is RN2818. You will be picked up by bus number A00499 at 24351 El Toro Road, Laguna Woods, USA, and taken to 2100 Northwest 42nd Street Avenue, Miami, Florida, USA. If you require any changes to this trip, kindly contact Laguna Woods Village Transportation Team, 597-465. Anyway, no, we did not introduce a new excursion to Florida. However, I knew technology does have a few kinks in it, and they are aware and they are working it out. Some of the complaints were people would call 3 days prior, and then they wouldn't get this response or a call that the ride's confirmed, and they would call, and there would be no list of them calling in. Their reservation disappeared. So that was posing some problems. And so we again apologize to everyone who is having problems with the technical system. They are working on it, trust me. But the percentage of rides that have a problem to the percentage of successful rides are null and void. Not that your problem is null and void. I'm not trying to say that. We hear your problem, and we are trying to fix it. But you need to look at the whole picture, and we're asking you to be patient and keep trying again and come to the next meeting. I don't know if it's going to be televised October 3rd. It will be at 1:30, the normal time, here in this room. Thank you.
And of course, after the meeting, that your recommendations go to finance, would then come here with a recommendation, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one step at a time, yep.
Yes. Okay, security and community access, Director Soul.
Thank you. And Judith, I did miss that meeting, but I have recorded it for September the 5th, so I'll make sure I watch it because it's very important. Thank you. All right, this is concerning security. We had someone get up and speak about the dogs and wanted to know about the number of dogs. And Chief Moy basically said the city of Laguna Woods limits the number of dogs to 2 per manor, but he did refer this woman to go back to her United board and see what was going on there, because she was scared to walk along the creek because certain dogs weren't, I guess they intimidated her, and what she felt like some of these dogs were walking their owners. The question, of course, the chief did make is if anybody's got a concern or afraid of that, they should always call security. Moving on to gate access update, the chief went into great detail at our last committee meeting to say that gate 5 and 6 are working well. He explained that even though there have been some minor glitches, overall he's pleased with the gate access program. Moving forward, the other gate access projects should begin breaking ground in October, starting with the following order of gates: gates 1 and 14. Then there will be gates 2 and 7, followed by gates 3 and 8, and then gates 4 and 9, and then lastly, gate 10, because we're asking for the funds for that, which we've done today. And then gate 11 is also part of the project, but we don't need to get around to that. And as I said earlier, these gates will be like gates 1 and 14. They'll be rolled out at one time, and there will be no moving on to gates 2 and 7 until all the glitches in gates 1 and 14 have been worked out. So this will be slow and it will be methodically done. We'll make sure the cameras work, the gates work, everything's working on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the RV lot. And as you've noticed, the RV Lot A is undergoing concrete and asphalt repairs that will take approximately 6 weeks to complete, so it should be done sometime in October. The RVs had to be removed from the lot, and they were placed inside the community on certain streets. And mostly they're around Avenue Saciega and Bahia Blanca. So if you see an RV that you don't think, or that's jeopardizing, I know Burton made a call because we had to move a couple RVs just for safety in the village. So please call security if you feel like one is impacting a sign or something else that you need to, for safety reasons. Of noteworthy incidents, a commendation was given to Security Patrol Officer Richard Gomez, who helped put out a fire in the 3rd Laguna Hills Mutual, where a resident's mattress caught on fire. And then the other incident was on Saturday, August the 25th, during a patrol check. Security patrol officer noticed a man that looked suspicious, and he was walking around with a white Townie bicycle and a backpack, and this was like early morning hours. The officer approached and basically he called the Orange County Sheriff's Department, who responded, admonished, and arrested the individual. Security stored the bike, believing it may have been recently stolen, and the individual returned on Sunday and was arrested again for trespassing. A call was also received from a resident reporting a theft of her white Townie bicycle. And she was very happy to get it because those things are very expensive. And I neglected to say that the man who looked suspicious in his backpack was, of course, bolt cutters, along with some drugs. But security statistics, basically the number of moving and traffic violations is higher than last year. And the reason for that is security is fully staffed with security patrol officers. This is concerning parking rules and regulations, handout and signage, especially for contractors. The majority of the violations for no parking are for contractor vehicles, and then flyers are being handed out at the gatehouse. And at our last security meeting, the committee agreed to continue with the current protocol of having gatehouses and resident services pass out the forms. Commercial vehicles, we handled that today. And then basically illegal dumping. That is something that we have throughout this village that is really, it's a huge concern. Contractors are illegally dumping, when manors are inherited, it seems like kids are dumping out the whole thing all along the community. And we're contemplating, this will be at the next meeting, the chief was thinking about maybe if we had a program where a resident, if they see something and they say something and report it in, maybe they receive like a $100 reward. That's something we're just contemplating. The other thing that's items for future agendas are the smoke and carbon monoxide alarm testing, the hardwire 10-year battery, and the date of the next meeting scheduled for Monday, October the 22nd at 1:30 p.m. here in Laguna Woods Village Community Center boardroom. And I want to ask everyone to please remember to use Dwelling Live, and you can use that and access it from lagunawoodsvillage.com or from your smartphone or your house computer. Basically, make sure your guest knows your manor number, because the more people that we have that use Dwelling Live, the more we can allow our resident services and our gate ambassadors to do other work, which is important here in the village. And then for the second reminder is for the people to secure an emergency notification form, and you can get that from Resident Services, and that's to give a key. I know that we gave a key to our screen door and our front door to Resident Services, and you can update your contacts, your cell, your home email address, but that's in case we're gone. We live in a 2-story, and maybe there's a leak up above, and somebody has to come through and access it. This way they won't have to break down our door or anything. So I just request that people, if you would like to, even for disaster preparedness, having an emergency notification form on file is really in your own best interest. There you have it. Thank you.
And Annette, the officer who stopped that suspicious guy with the bolt cutters, can we make sure he gets an accommodation?
Yes, of course.
That's quite a good deal. Everybody realizes how many bikes get stolen in this community. You get an arrest like that, and you probably cleared up half of them. So excellent work by our security people. I love it. Okay, let me see, who's next? Disaster Preparedness Director Troutman.
How about me?
I forgot you. Traffic hearings, Director Groves.
Well, I want to
Sorry,
continue
Ray.
with Annette's permission. I'm going to read something that occurred, which is very, very close to me because I experienced it as well. Last week, a newspaper delivery person happened to be going by and noticed there were 3 or 4 papers sitting out in front of the place. Now, understand one thing. Chief Moy has said, Annette has said, and I have said, see something, say something, do something. However, people think they don't want to be called busybodies, nosy people, and pains in the you-know-what situation, so they generally don't do it. In this particular case, it was 5:45 in the morning, and the gentleman actually went to the residence, saw a light on, and saw a person lying down on the floor. Called the emergency and got it done. By the way, in my situation, which I spoke about this a couple of months ago, my wife is involved in a bowling league, and they were in the process of going to Sacramento. We had made arrangements, one of her bowling buddies, to pick her up so that we'd drive her that way. We had called that morning, no answer. Went over there, and there were 4 newspapers sitting out on the driveway. Called again, no answer. Door was locked. I immediately called 911 first. They also called security to get a key to go in. It just so happened that the deputy sheriff happened to be right outside the gate where this person lived and was there within a couple of minutes. He and I were able to not break down the door, but to dislodge a door to get in, and our friend was lying on the floor. You'll have to excuse me. She passed away that evening, unfortunately. I asked 2 people around there, why didn't you say something? Because I don't want to be a nosy person, a busybody, and so forth. Forget that. You can excuse yourself later. That lady probably would have stayed alive had she had some help. 4 days, apparently, was problem. We found her on the floor out of the bathroom, but she passed away. Okay, now I'll get into security, traffic. We only had 11 traffic persons there last week, or at the meeting. Most of them, again, were for commercial vehicles, and that's being addressed because a lot of the situations were that the people who had the problem happened to be renters and or lessees. And we found out that those people are not getting the paperwork from the owner of the property. Therefore, they were not apprised of this until we started passing out this information. That has been addressed and is being done very, very well, and it's going to be caught up soon. Most of the situations, again, were for that, for the commercial vehicles. Speed, again, and believe it or not, no driver's license, no new license on your vehicle expired. And that was, people think because they're 75 or whatever, they don't need to renew their driver's license. You certainly do. But just to give you an idea for the year, this is as of the end of July. I don't have August in here. There were a total of 2018 notice of violation. Speed was up from 215 to 288 for 6, which is the 11 to 15 miles an hour. Speed of 16 over was up from 31 to 81. Stop signs was up from 228 to 281. Unlicensed drivers up from 35 to 40. No parking, 312 from 12. Expired registration from 253 to 376. These are the last years up to this year. And here again, people think they don't need these things. Well, we're trying to inform them. And by the way, at the traffic hearings, we do inform them of a lot of situations, and we do take care of things that stop certain situations that occur in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Disaster preparedness, Judith?
We did not have a meeting in August. However, on the 31st, we did have a fantastic barbecue to appreciate. It was an appreciation luncheon for all of the Good Neighbor captains. We had 165 Good Neighbor captains show up for lunch. We had 35, at least, volunteers working the lunch. 10 of those alone were just security personnel. And they did the hardest work. It seemed like they just crates and crates of food being brought in that they had to move because they had the bronze. And then, plus they also did the cooking out on the barbecue. So it was very well received and a lot of fun, and I hope to do it again next year. And we worked alongside Chief Moy's family, and they are such a joy to work around. They are just wonderful people. I actually have goosebumps right now thinking about how neat they were. So I had a lot of fun myself, and our next meeting will be, of course, September 25th, the usual time and place, 9:30 in the Cypress Room. Thank you.
Bert, you already did give your landscaping, so we'll just move right on to 15, all right? Future agenda items, none.
Not for you.
Not for you,
that's
yeah.
for sure.
You're finito.
What about the 2 items moved over from new business? Yeah.
We did.
30-day notice.
Ooh. The 30-day notice, that's right.
Right.
We better do
That's the
that.
one I want to work on.
Which one was that again? From, let me see here, C, 13C, and G. We didn't vote on those, did we? Do we vote now? We vote in the next meeting.
Yeah, 30
Right.
days. The 30 days.
Right.
That's why we, okay.
Well, there was supposed to be a motion to bring it to the next 30 days, which, as long as we vote,
Joan did.
yeah, and Joan did.
We moved
The secretary always makes the motion.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let me see here. Then, director comments. Mr. Mattson.
No comment.
Mr. Juhan.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry you're leaving us, and I certainly will miss you very much. So, but God bless you and wherever you're going.
Thank you. Jim.
Kudos to Joe out there for his comments, for the job that Joan did, even though she was coughing a little bit. And also the meeting, the mobility meeting, who's this going? That's me. Right on time. And Joan, for that meeting, it was a marathon. She did a great job. The ones that missed it, you missed a good thing. And
Watch the replay.
And to Mr. President, I think you have been divine.
Thank you. Judith.
I just want to say on a mobility note, because I hear so many complaints about people who missed their bus or their planner ride didn't get scheduled, even though we're working on it. Myself and a couple other people, if you have an emergency and you're going to miss a very important medical test or something like that, you could call me, and if I can't, I have a couple other people I could call that will transport you. We won't take you shopping, sorry, but I'm going to get my own 9-passenger vehicle, and I'll have to put it in the commercial lot. My commercial thing's going to say Juber.
Excellent. Very good. And thanks for that meeting, by the way, Judith. Diane.
Like the others, I'll be sad that you're gone, and thank you for the service, the service you've done. And on another matter, I just happened to notice that the city of Laguna Woods is collecting donations for the new dog park. So if people are interested, they could go on and look. I assume they can use the money, so.
Thank you. Ray.
From one cop to another cop, you've done good, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you.
I would also talk about Laguna Canyon Foundation. We have a lot of information on that. Their discovery hikes, yoga hikes, fitness hikes, all kind of stuff that at Aliso and Wood Canyon Wilderness Park, Laguna Coast Wilderness Park. And the phone number to contact them is 949-497-8324. That's 949-497-8324. And we have a lot of copies at the front desk for these items. Thank you.
Beth?
I want to say to Tom, thank you for your leadership, your experience, and bringing us together as a team. We will really miss you, and God bless.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, no comment.
Diane?
Okay, I feel the same way Beth does. Thank you for your leadership and your team building and for being so concise. You have been excellent for all of us, and it's been a real joy. Those are big shoes. Thank you. You'll be missed.
Bert?
I just hope whoever steps in your shoes takes an example as to how to run a meeting. You really do a major, major job. Thank you.
Bert.
Have a good, successful future.
Thank you. Joan?
Tom, all the best. We've loved having you as our president and leader, and you've been truly inspiring, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm going to end by saying thanks to all of you for allowing me to serve with you, and especially the residents and the other directors who voted for me to come on to GRF. I want to thank our legal staff who's given me great guidance throughout. But the main thing is working with you has been a true honor. Thank you. Recess.
Are you going to talk?